Hey everyone, welcome to my first Marbling with Melt and Pour compilation video. I have several different videos here that show this technique that I created long before I started filming my soaps. And as a result, you'll have some that are older. In fact, my fifth video ever is in here. And you'll see that the technique kind of evolves as I go. But some of that is just depending on the style I'm going for. The one you see up there now is a gemstone type. The first one is more of a galaxy. The This one here is an ocean vibe. So I'm going for different looks, and therefore I add a couple of different steps in some of these. So feel free to glance around, and I will eventually create chapters for this and see what you haven't seen. Don't forget to look in my seasonal soap videos. You'll find a couple of additional uses of this technique. And I hope that you try this technique if you haven't. To me, it's one of the easiest ways to get a marbled look. And to me, it's related to a swirl. It's not quite, but if you're having difficult time with swirls, give it a try, because you never know what you can create from this look. You can get a look that is just like a swirl, sorta. Have fun and let me know what you think. Today, I'm making Nebula Soaps using Mad Mica's Deep Space collection. Starting right off with Supernova, a gorgeous sparkly copper. And then the next one I think I'm showing you is Nebula, which when you see later, you're going to be shocked how beautiful it is in clear Melt and Pour soap. Then we have Zero Gravity, which is a black, sparkly, glittery, beautiful color. Here comes Spacewalk, a deep, lovely blue, again with lots of sparkle. Then we have Luna. This one's so hard to describe, but it is gorgeous in soap. It's a light, silvery, but it shimmers purple or purple blue. And then Interstellar is the most beautiful silver I think I've ever seen or used. And I'm so excited to do more with that one in the future. I'm showing you one last mica here. This isn't part of the Deep Space collection, and I actually didn't end up using it in this one, but it's called Blue Moon, and it would work beautifully with this set of micas. I just ended up having too much going on and didn't really need to add that one to this. So here I've got my premium crystal clear Crafter's Choice soap base from Wholesale Supplies Plus. Not affiliated with any of these people, by the way. These are just my choices of what I wanted to use. While I'm melting this soap down, let me just tell you a little bit about the colorants and why I chose these. I already have a line of galaxy space type soaps in my collection, and was planning to expand that. I started planning that back in the fall. And just so happened that Mad Mica's was releasing this collection, and I was planning to make a Nebula soap anyway. And then I saw this collection, and I was like, those are the perfect colors. And indeed they were. I tend to normally stick to a little bit brighter colors for my space-themed soaps. A little kitschy, maybe a little cartoonish. They're beautiful, but I use a lot of neons and kind of over the top. So I wanted this Nebula soap to look more like a real nebula. And so when these colors came out, I was really excited to work with them. And what I'm beginning with, other than a mess that you see I already spilled, because you know it's not a soap from me if I don't spill in the video, I'm going to start with a basic swirl on the bottom as a base for this soap. You see me putting in my fragrance oil, which I think is Raspberries and Sweet Mint, which is a Bath & Body Works dupe. I think this version is from Aztec. I wanted to show you me stirring that in real quick, just because I wanted you to see if you don't stir your oils in well, you will not really have a true clear soap. I mean, it's not great for your skin either, but this just shows you how quickly it clears up if you just keep stirring a little bit longer than you think it needs to be stirred. It clears right up. And I also did not use the full percentage I was allowed on this. I can go into that later maybe, but I think I'm only using about 2% in this soap. But it's a nice strong fragrance, and I chose it for that reason. I didn't need a lot of oil, and therefore wouldn't cloud up the crystalline look that I wanted to have for this. I really like the clarity of soaps to shine in my art soaps. So there you see me stirring in the Interstellar. I know most people stir their micas into alcohol, and I usually do too. I just don't always. This soap here that I'm stirring, these two, the black and the blue, I'm trying to cool them a little at the same time. I'm going to be swirling them in a very thin layer, which is why this works fairly easily for swirling, is because I'm doing it in a very thin layer. The thinner the layer you're pouring, the faster it cools, and therefore the easier it is to swirl, usually. There, I cleaned up my mess. So this, look at the sparkle on that soap. That is so beautiful. That mica is gorgeous. And there's the spacewalk. I was going here for my background color, kind of creating a canvas, the space look, the black that you would see. But of course I wanted to put some highlights in it. Didn't want it to just be a plain background, which I usually do for my other Galaxy soaps. And you can find those on my channel, or at least one of them is on my channel right now. I'm just cleaning up the edges a little. I didn't have to. I'm just a little, I overdo. So I'm spritzing that. It cools fairly quickly because it's very small, very thin layer. So I let it set up fully, and you're going to see me measure the temperature here, and I go heat it back up because it's not hot enough, even though 122 is a great pouring temperature for this soap. It's a fairly low temperature melting point. But in order to stick to the base color I have set up, it has to be fairly hot. And you want to find a point where it's hot enough to stick, and to be able to layer in some other colors, and yet not hot enough to melt the underlying layer. If I poured that whole pitcher in at that temperature, it would definitely melt the bottom. But again, I'm just pouring a very thin layer. I'll talk a little bit more about my layering technique as we go. I'm just putting in the dry mica. This is a dry mica swirling technique that I've used in many of my soaps. I find it particularly effective in soaps like this, really artsy soaps and crystals, things where not a specific pattern is necessary. And you see me swirling it here. It swirls in pretty easily because the soap is still pretty warm, but it doesn't swirl enough to muddy things up. You'll see this happen a lot in this soap, where normally some of the colors I would pour, if you were to do this in a loaf pan, or a loaf mold, sorry, not a pan. But if you were to do this in a loaf mold, a lot of these colors would start swirling together and muddy and blend more than you want, or at least blend more than I want for this look. I'm looking here for some background sparkle. I want it to look, oh, there's another spill. Background sparkle, and these kind of look like clouds to me, space clouds. And it's a very iridescent color. I don't know if the camera shows that at this moment, but I think later on when you see the finished soap, you'll see that. And here's my next mica swirling technique. This is a different one. This one is kind of a wet mica swirling technique. I use 3 different techniques in this for swirling micas. And so, at least 3. Oh no, I don't remember. Squirting alcohol, just 99% rubbing alcohol in there. I didn't stir it very well, as you see, but I'm basically just using the part with more alcohol in it. You can't cover an entire layer with this. Well, you can, but if you do that, you're risking the soap not sticking. You have to be careful when you're layering with mica, whether it's you're brushing it on or sprinkling it on or mixing it in alcohol and dotting it on like I'm doing here. I also come back in, as you'll see, I don't leave it alone. I spritz it again with alcohol, which does spread it out further. But because it's a large, flat surface with a very thin layer of mica, it spreads it out a little, but not so much that it totally destroys the image and the look of these little splotches of color. Again, going for more space clouds, nebula type gas clouds, and stars being born and all the fun stuff that happens there. You'll see here I come back in with the soap. Still fairly warm, and this is intentionally going to be breaking through that previous layer. This is what I'm calling, I don't know. I'm making up a name right now, but maybe somebody else has a name for this technique. I'm calling it wet layering. I'm intentionally breaking through the layers a bit, but still adding additional layers on top. I find in the soaps I use this technique for, I find that I can usually get 3 layers like this. They all need to be thin, and it all depends on what you're doing. Again, this is not something for precision. This is for the kind of design where it's very artsy, it's very fluid, it's an open design. You're not looking to get an exact picture of a puppy or something like that. So, and those are my favorite because really there's very few mistakes you can make design-wise. It's art, and art isn't exact. It's an expression. So I think I do 3 layers with this one. And then I let that, you'll see, I let that completely set up and then start again. And you can do many layers like that as long as you're aware of your temperatures and allow the layers that need to adhere together. Well, they all need to adhere together. But once you get a layer that is completely set up, then you have to pour hot enough so where the next layers will adhere. So this color, the Nebula color, oh my goodness, it's so beautiful. That purple that shines through is so amazing. And a little blue, hint of blue in there, and it's very pearlescent. It looks gorgeous in the soap. I imagine it look gorgeous in anything you put it in. But, oh, sorry for the table quake. That's fun. Here I'm doing, I think, the final layer in this portion of the soap. I think I'm going to consider this, even though I'm pouring several layers, I'm going to call it one layer when I label my chapters. But you see me going in again with clear. One of the important things about doing soaps like this is making sure you get the edges. It's very easy to forget to get to the very edges, and you want to do that first because that needs to adhere really well in order to maintain the integrity of the soap. You'll also notice I poured more clear in, even though I didn't pour a whole layer in right here where I'm pouring. I didn't need to pour more clear soap because it still wasn't set up. So it goes in and it flows, and you're able to blend it a little bit, but not so much that you're muddying it with that copper. Normally you have that purple and copper together swirling in a soap, you're just going to have mud. But because you're doing thin layers, it works. So that top corner that I added the clear soap to, it was starting to set up enough to where I needed the clear soap to help it blend, help it move and be fluid. And this little bottom here, I just added the part where you see me pouring now, I'm adding it over the top of it. That's 2 different ways to swirl that. If you're doing this kind of layering, you can pour the clear soap first and either pour in your soap or sprinkle your micas or add micas with alcohol, whatever you want to do. But the soap has to be there too and has to be fluid enough to help the colors work around the way you want them to work. You notice it's kind of looks like a bumpy mess right now. And that's okay at this point. You'll see that I clear that up pretty quickly when I get to the next step. Trust what you see. I mean, if you like it, it's going to pretty much look like that because you're doing thin layers. If you're doing a very large batch, or I mean a very thick batch at a time, pouring like this, it's not going to set up in enough time, and everything's going to be muddy. But pretty much what you see here is what you get. It stops the motion of these micas in movement before they have a chance to really muddy and make it ugly. So I think I let it set up here, and here we go. We're starting fresh. That layer is fully set up now, or those layers, I'm sorry, are fully set up now, and I am starting with a hot soap. Now for the type of soap I use, hot means about 133 to 135 at the very most. As cool as I will pour a layer like this for a soap is around 130. It changes if you're doing embeds. That's another story and another technique, which I will talk about in another soap. But as long as you're not adding embeds, you're not going to melt that bottom layer by pouring that in there. If you're doing a soap with a higher melting point, you want to take it a little bit. It needs to be above the melting point. The melting point of my soap is between 120 and 125, and that's why I'm taking it at the most 10 degrees above that, but 5 to 10 degrees above melting point for this. This is the Interstellar. Again, this is the best silver I've ever found. I've never been happy with a silver mica or really even a silver glitter that's soap safe. This is so pretty. It's a true silver. It's not a white pretending to be a silver. It's not a light blue or a light purple pretending to be a silver. It is true silver, and it is sparkly, and it's gorgeous, and it's my new favorite. So you'll probably see that in a lot of soaps coming up because it's just to die for. And what I was going for in this little bit here is I was trying to streak it a little. I almost wanted it to look like shooting stars or shooting gases coming from these nebulas. And I feel like I get that look. The streaking actually worked out better than I thought it would. But that's what happens when you play. This, by the way, is a completely off-the-cuff soap. I knew the colors I wanted to use, and I had a basic idea of what I wanted it to look like. But each layer was, hey, let's try this. So this is true improv here, as is my talking, and I'm not doing a great job of that. But I'm kind of just watching and saying what my thoughts were or saying what my technique was as I was going. Hopefully it can help you if you try a soap like this. It really is much easier than it looks when you look at the finished product. To me, the finished product reminds me of a Jackson Pollock painting. It looks like a nebula, but it has that feel to it for me, like slung paints, even though it's a little bit more swirly than that. You can bet I'll be playing with that idea in the near future. I really have a thing for art soaps and expressing myself in this way. It's my favorite thing. So I didn't have to do this layer, but I'm kind of glad I did. I came back in with a couple of the darker colors. I was mostly going darker to lighter, with the exception of that first iridescent layer in the beginning. But I came back with the Spacewalk and the, what's that one called? Zero Gravity is the black one. So I kind of wanted to add a little shading, a little shadow. I'm very glad I did, because when I finish this soap and pull it out of the mold, I found the back layer wasn't as dark as I thought it was. I tricked myself a little bit here with having the red mold, but it's the only one I have in that shape, and I really wanted it. I'll probably be looking for one that is more like a true slab mold in the future, because that's what I really want. But I went with what I had because I didn't want to spend more money. So here is more of the dark layering. It's just supposed to be a little bit of shade to break up all the lightness there, a little bit of shadow in front, which is, I know, sounds kind of weird, but that's the way I did it. And I do like the results. I think in the future, and something I want to do in all my videos here is say a little bit about what I like about the soap, what I would change in the future, and maybe what did or didn't work for me in the soap. It doesn't mean I don't love the soap, because I do. I was thrilled with how it came out. But there's always something. I'm picky, and there's almost always something I think I could improve. I look to improve daily, hopefully. So spritzing that one, I think I leave it alone after. No, I don't. I come back in with some clear soap, because I still, that the black and the darker blue, I really wanted them to be have a little bit more fluidity. And I just waited a second too long, I believe. The top was starting to get a little bit of a film, so it wasn't really moving. I thought maybe if I come back in with some clear. I really, in all truth, should have heated the soap up again a little bit. But I didn't, so I still made it work. And that's part of the beauty of this style of soap. Usually, if you don't panic, you can usually make it work. Just kind of still flipping around with that black, trying to get it to do something. It's stuck. It's done. Terry, stop it. And you have to kind of learn by trial and error with this kind of soap. Get the feel for what the soap is doing. You have to know your soap base that you're using very well. That's one of the reasons I encourage people to try different soap bases. Once you find one you love, you work it really well and play with it, so you know what it's going to do when you try to swirl, when you try to do things like that. So this last layer I do on any of my soaps like this, and it's just a clear layer to smooth everything out, make sure it adheres together. So of course that's a very hot layer, because I let the layers beneath set up thoroughly before I added the clear layer on top. I love soaps like this to have depth. I want you to see all the way into space. And I feel like it really does give that image in the finished piece. So you're about to see me totally botch cutting. I guess I'll show you the soap first. It's a really cool big square of soap. You see what I mean about it being a little too see-through at the back. That wasn't my original design or my original idea. I did want that background to be really dark and have all of the other colors kind of pop out on top in layers. So I'm kind of glad I came back in with the dark, because that offsets that a little bit. If I were to try this soap again, there are a few things I would change. And one of those is I would make the background darker and make it a thicker layer. The micas are fine. I just didn't put enough in for what I wanted. I might go for adding a touch of activated charcoal. I'm not sure, though, because I really do like the sparkle. And I don't want to hide that. I just need to add the correct amount. I was going off the cuff and playing as I went. So I also didn't measure the blue and black evenly. And I think I would do that because I think the blue overshadowed the black quite a bit. I just had more. But that's what learning is. Well, now I know to measure it. I'm cutting the edges of this off because it's a little bit of a rounded mold, and I didn't want that look for this. I promise those scraps will be used. In fact, sometime soon I'll do some scrap soaps using some of the scraps I've recently made in videos, so you can see them being put to use. Here comes the atrocious cutting. I love my Uncle Andy's cutter, but it works for loaf soaps, not really for slabs. I can usually do better than what I did today. You see, I'm very careful measuring it out. I've got it all marked. And then I get the edge of this knife, double-handled cheese knife, which I really highly recommend for cutting large slabs of any kind. But you see it gets stuck. It goes down earlier than I wanted it to, and it wasn't quite lined up yet. And I couldn't get it. I couldn't not make the cut because it was already in there. I couldn't, there was nothing I could do. It was stuck. So it does it again on the other side, but I still think the soap turns out beautiful. I don't think it's distracting at all once when you see the final product. It's a little off, but again, it's art. It's not so off that it looks bad. So this is it. Look how stuck that is. I was so mad at myself. There may have been a few curse words flying around the room, which I'll never put in my videos, which is why I don't talk while I soap in the videos. Oh my goodness. It is so pretty. I was really proud of this soap. I feel like this is a piece of art. Even though there are things I would do differently, the darker background, I would make it thicker. My larger soaps are usually a little thicker than this. They're just a little thin for me. And probably the thicker background would work because I don't think it needs another layer of color. I don't want it to get so busy that you can't get the idea of what you're looking at or what the intention is. Can you see how the various colors are just layers deep? They look like you're looking into a little world. I hope you're able to see that on camera. It's definitely clear in real life when you're seeing that. Oh my goodness, there is that Nebula purple. The camera still isn't quite picking it up the way I wanted it to show you. It's got just the most beautiful hint of luminescent blue in there, but it remains a true purple, but the blue is just stunning and perfect for something like this. Why am I spraying these with alcohol, you might wonder? And that is because I just want you to see what they're like when they are being used. When you first dunk them in water, that's what they're going to look like. Maybe even a little more clear than this. But I'm not dunking them in water because I don't really want to use a soap before somebody buys it. So just giving you the idea so you can see fully into the soap. They do, when I wrap them with saran wrap, and when I do the clarity, that helps the clarity. It kind of just pops out and looks like you're looking right into glass. This one I was showing you first without spraying because I wanted you to see the difference. This is what it's like just fresh out of the mold. Nothing on it, no alcohol, no water, nothing extra to make it clear. It's still pretty darn clear. And then of course I spritz it for you. Oh, I love that one. I know you have to be able to see the layering in that. And the sparkle. Can you see the sparkle to me, the ones that stand out, the sparkles that stand out are the bronze, supernova, and the interstellar, the silver one. A lot of them, well, most of them had a little bit of sparkling mica in them. There are 0 glitters added to this one, which was a huge restraint for me. I don't know if you've seen any of my previous soap videos, but I tend to love adding glitter to most of my soaps. I do a lot of crystal type soaps and soaps that just to me really scream for glitter. And I love glitter. So always using soap safe glitter and biodegradable glitter. Mostly I use the sparkling micas because I know they don't cause any problems in soaps. And they're beautiful. Oh my goodness. Yeah, you can see that. There's a lot of sparkle in the black and the zero gravity, which is the black, and in the dark blue as well, the spacewalk. But those are at the back, so you don't see them as much. Beveling here. I only beveled one on film because I kind of wanted to just see if I liked it or not. And honestly, I'd love your opinion on that. If you, well, in a moment you'll see I'm going to hold up one that isn't beveled, and I'd love to see what your thoughts are. Do you like it beveled? Do you prefer to see soaps beveled, especially ones like this? I feel like it really enhances the look of the clarity, and it just makes you look a little deeper into the picture, in my opinion. But I just want to know what you think. I know some people love beveled soaps and some people don't. I think it's a beautiful look for some soaps. I don't do it with every soap, but soaps like these I really like too. I eventually did bevel all of them, but I only did the one on camera because I kind of wanted your opinion. So those are those two side by side, and you can compare. I'm going to show you the soaps individually now, from pictures I took in my light box. And while those are showing, I just want to thank you so much for spending this time with me. I love improvising this type of soap, and hopefully within my little bit of mess of not knowing what I was going to do, hopefully I could still teach you a little something or give you some ideas, maybe spark some ideas for you, create an interest in this type of soap. What's it going to hurt to try? If it goes really awry, it's Melt and Pour soap. You can remelt it. You can cut it into crystal shapes and use it there. But please feel free to ask questions. Please like and subscribe if you really got something from this soap. I love sharing my soap art with you, and hopefully through watching my channel, maybe I can help you to become a better soap maker. Thank you so much. Bye. Hey everyone. Today we're going to work on a marbled galaxy soap. As usual, you will see most of the products that I'm using up on the screen because I'm going to talk more about technique and a few other things as we go. I will also, most of the time, have links in my description box. They may not be for every item I'm using. So if you have questions about any particular thing you're seeing, let me know in the comments and I will try to find you. I can't always find the link because if I if I purchased something years ago, I may not remember where I purchased it from. But if I do get some of my items, especially my tools and molds and such, from Amazon, and if you've shopped Amazon a bit, you'll know that things are not always available, or they'll be available from another company or something similar. So sometimes it's hard to find the exact thing that I have purchased, but I will do my best to try. I do usually show you or put links to at least the colorants and such that I am including, and my fragrance oil, etc. Sorry, my voice is a little wonky today. It's just a little stuffy. And that's my story. So as you see here, this is my first layer. I'm kind of calling this, I don't know, this is a marbled layer, layering technique. And I really got to get the name nailed down with these, because I've also called it wet layering, because it is, and this one really is maybe a hybrid of those two. You'll see here I created that with kind of a swirl. I just did it at a fairly low temperature, like 122, 123, something like that. Nothing crazy. But because I'm only pouring at most a 1/4 inch for that layer, it cools very quickly. So you always have to take that into consideration. Up top, if you'll notice, I'm just showing you the little bluing technique real quick, because this fragrance oil does discolor just a tiny bit. And I'm using it anyway because I want to show you that sometimes you can use it. It's not a color that discolors to a full brown. It just yellows a little bit. There's a small amount of vanillin in it. I used winter candy apple. And please shop around if color is important to you and vanillin content is important to you, as that will yellow or brown your soaps depending. You want to look at a variety of companies, they don't always have the same vanillin content, even if it's the same fragrance. So this one was, I think, about 1.5, 1.2. It was fairly low. I usually don't like to go above 1%, but the black background helps quite a bit, and lots of blues. If it goes a little bit yellow, which I'm pretty sure what you saw in the container is as much as it's going to yellow. And that little drop of blue does help. It's not going to fog it. If your soap is foggy, that's either your soap, or you overheated it, or something like that. Because or the only way fragrance oil can really make your soap look foggy, or not see through, is if it's overheated, or if you fragrance oil, if you didn't mix it in properly. So you want to mix it probably more than you think you should, especially if it doesn't look as clear as it did when you first pulled it off the heat source or out of the microwave or whatever, however you melt your soaps. This is the first little layering technique here. I'm trying to stick with what's going on. One of the most important things I think about this layering technique is you pour a layer of soap and add your colorants in little bits, but you have to work quickly because then you want to add more soap on top before it's set up. And I'm adding, in these layers, I'm adding anywhere really more like 1/8 of an inch. And then when I go to pour the second part of the layer to break the color up and help it to kind of move along, it equals about 1/4 inch, maybe less, depending. I don't measure these by weight. I measure them by how thick I want my soap to be. My recommendation to you is that you look at your mold and determine how thick do you want your bars of soap to be. In a bar soap that is done from the bottom up, face up, instead of like in a loaf mold where you're going where the excuse me, the top of the soap is the top of the soap bar. And in these, you're more looking face up as you do these. You can do face down. I don't like to do that with these because I like to get an overall picture. It's not a specific design. It's not like I'm excuse me, creating a landscape or something where the hills have to be here and the trees have to be there, that kind of thing. It's more abstract art. And so I just kind of like to see how it's going, make sure I have, enough of this color showing. Is it starting to be too heavy on that color? Am I still seeing some of that background, etc.? So it helps me to do this one face up, which is, for me, I trim the edges with a, excuse me, with a vegetable peeler, as you'll see in the end. And that helps anything that's a little wonky on the sides. And you'll see I don't really fuss about that too much because I know I'm going to shave off the sides, just a little bit at an angle. And it does help with any of those little drips you see going down the side. And just cleans it all up. It also can help when you're cutting soaps like this, because they're a little tricky to cut, at least for me. I'm not super coordinated. If you put your knife down and then you have to move it just a tiny bit, and that little bit of a line shows, you can, you can shave that off if it's not too far in. What you see me doing here is an experiment. So I was playing around. It didn't end up like I wanted, like not at all. It was not what I intended with this part of it. It did end up really cool, and I like the way it came out, like a lot. You basically end up just seeing some little images of planets, little circles that kind of, I don't know, it reminds me, I don't the wording on this is probably incorrect, but it reminds me of like a star map or something you'd see in a science fiction movie that comes up in the middle of the air like a hologram or something. It's not like an actual real image of a planet. As you see here, I lost some of the footage just for a second. Our camera went off, and so you missed was me putting in the other circles. Since I was experimenting, I didn't put as many as I probably would have liked if I'd planned this out. I definitely didn't push that larger ring down in far enough. I would recommend if you try doing this, and these are just little cutters from Amazon that come in, I think, about 12 sizes. I don't know. There's a bunch available on Amazon if you look. I wouldn't put it in while it's melted, while the soap is melted, unless it's right away. Because I put it in after one of the layers and it was still soft, but it was not really, what's the word I'm looking for? It wasn't completely solidified. So it kind of bent the edges in a little, and I was worried to push through too much because I didn't want to destroy the pattern I just made. I should have just waited till the whole thing was solidified, which is what I then did with the rest of them when I realized what that was going to do. I let it set up and then put the others in. It didn't really mess up what's here. It just messed up the design idea that I had, which I'm not going to tell you about too much now because I will try it in the future. Although my next marbled soap is going to be going for more of a traditional marble look, like a stone marble. That'll be in I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks. I'm going to work that. It'll be a similar technique to this, but a completely different look. Probably less layers and less stuff. Depending, I guess, because sometimes I just go fly by the seat of my pants. Do I like what I'm seeing? No. Add more or add less. If you add more, it's going to, you can tell as you're going. Sometimes I have to stop myself. I like glitter a little too much, but just notice there's really not a lot to this other than noticing. Oh, see here. Now there's a little bit to tell you. See how it's got that like a skin or a web across the top, and I'm pouring more to make it a little bit more movable. You don't want to mess with pulling that everywhere, that skin everywhere. I mean, you can. It's a different look. You're going to get a lot of like spider web look, kind of. If you want that, go for it. You'll have more bubbles. You'll have more wrinkles, etc., which I think look fine and cool within a Galaxy soap. It gives it some really neat dimension. Might look like some stars are streaking across the sky or across the space scape. I don't know. But you saw I stopped trying to move it and just kind of patted it a little because I wanted to make sure that the mica that was on top got under the hot soap. And that when that wasn't working properly, I poured more soap. Keep in mind the top layers of this, meaning after the first layer that I poured at like 123, 122. Now I'm pouring hot. So every other layer that you've seen me pour is about between 130 and 135. 133 is like the goal, the perfect temperature, basically the aiming. But since I'm pouring more than one layer at once, because I put some mica in various ways, you see that some of that was mixed in with rubbing alcohol, and some of it was just mica slung around a little bit, and some was mixed in soap. If you saw anything I put in a pipette, that was mica with rubbing alcohol only. And anything in one of the little Mad Mica cups, those little tiny silicone white cups, that was mica with soap. And of course, anything with the little stick that you saw me slinging around was just mica or some type of soap-friendly glitter, and biodegradable of some kind or earth-friendly, depending. I try to get the best kind that I can for all of us, and not using the stuff with a lot of icky stuff in it that we don't need. So for the next few minutes, you're going to see me cutting. I'm not great at it. I want you to notice I did speed it up quite a bit because I take my time. So you're going to see a lot of wobbles. I promise you, because it's so sped up, you're not seeing me shaking. Like it looks like this one isn't too bad. But some of them look like I'm shaking, and I'm not. I'm just adjusting it until I know that it's exactly where I want it. And sometimes that takes a little bit for me. I want to make sure it's exactly where I want it before I press that knife through. Again, you can get rid of marks if you have to move it a little. But by a little, I mean like, 1/16 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch at the most, because that's about, maybe the peeler I use takes off maybe a little bit more than an 1/8 of an inch, maybe at times, or somewhere in between a 1/16 and an 1/8. If you have a lighter hand with it, it's more toward 1/16 of an inch. And if you're heavy-handed with it, it's a little more like an 1/8, maybe a little bit more than that. So, yeah, again, that can take off some of those little marks from the knife. It also removes, and I'm sorry, I forgot to mention, back when I had this in the mold and it was set up, I didn't show you because I forgot, honestly, to start the camera up again, or have Mr. Soapy start the camera up again. But I took my knife and made the marks in the mold. The reason I did that is because while it's difficult to see on camera, my soap mold comes with marks on the sides that help me kind of guide that. And so that's what I'm using. I will say the one I bought, and it wasn't a super expensive one. It was when I bought on Amazon. I couldn't even tell you the name of the brand or anything. There was one mark missing that I just kind of have to guess. Really not guess, because you can, measure and divide it in two between the two. But it's just a little bit more of a pain than just marking it with a knife. And it's just the one spot, but you have to mark all the sides before you remove it from the mold if you want that size bar. Anyway, back to size of bars and amounts and stuff like that. That's the reason I don't give you much about the amounts of anything I'm using, because it's going to depend on how thick you like your soap bars. These were thicker than the soap that I made with this, the earlier soap I made with this technique. Early on, I did a Nebula soap using all of the micas in the Nebula series of that Mad Micas had out, because I loved all those colors together. But I wanted to try one with more traditional kind of galaxy colors, and wanted to play more with the layered marbling technique. And I'm not sure how well I described that, but I pour hot soap, thin amount of hot soap, sprinkle on whatever micas or drizzle or pour with soap. I tried to do one of each in each layer, and do them quickly, and then pour more soap on top to break up those colors. And you saw with the drier micas, I tended to also try to streak those around a little bit, which is why I do those first, because those need a little bit more movement to break up. But then when I get that other clear layer on top that moves them, then I let it set up completely. So that's why I'm using hot soap. It's fully set up. You don't need to make scratches in it or anything. If the soap is hot enough, it's not going to melt it enough to harm anything, especially if you don't pour right in one spot. You see, I moved the pitcher around quite a bit. It probably wouldn't really do anything in these soaps anyway, because, at most you'd have a little bit of mica floating around. I mean, these are so abstract. I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference. But just to keep in mind, that technique works if you move your pitcher around and don't pour in one spot. Kind of like, and you could also use, if you wanted to use a spatula to help break the fall of it, but I'd still, if I did that, I'd still move it around. It's not going to break through anything because the layer underneath is fully set up. That's why I don't tend to do that with these. I love the way these come out. I hope you can see the little rings. There's one that shows up pretty well. Not all of them had one. Like I said, I was kind of experimenting with that look. What I wanted to do was something else, and I will try it down the road. But I do think they came out really cool, and I love that they showed up. I wasn't even sure they were going to show up. I was just kind of pulling a Hail Mary to try to save the soap because there was a very big mess up that I didn't show in here, and I may make a separate video for that. I'm not sure. I am considering doing a membership type thing where you can sign up to and pay small amounts to see things like that. Things that don't necessarily matter for the technique of the soap. I don't want to kind of gatekeep my design ideas and stuff like that, but I might have some little special things for members if that is something, and I've been asked a couple of times, which is why I was considering it. I don't know if you can tell on the camera here. When you move these soaps, you see so many different colors. Each angle is a different color, a different look. The light catches these in different ways as you move them. And I don't think the camera fully captures it. It's so cool. It's like you're looking at a different soap when you move the angles, or like it's definitely very three-dimensional. Almost reminds me of those little, I don't know, postcards they used to have back in the days with those it had a clear layer on it, but with lines on it, and you'd move it and it would change the picture. I have no idea what they're called. But they looked, that they don't look like this, but they kind of moved like this, and the colors would shift, etc. Now their entire picture would change. Mine, it just picks up on different aspects of what's already there. I really was happy with the whole look overall. I feel like it was different enough from the Nebula Soap to go ahead and do this. And the next marbled one that you see is going to be completely different because, again, it's going to look like a stone. And that will be coming soon, and along with some other marbling and swirling stuff down the road I have planned. If you are getting anything from this, any tips, any tricks, or just inspiration, if you haven't subscribed already, please do that. It is really helpful. And I did, I look into my metrics a little bit and see what's happening. And it does show that 60% of my watchers, or views, I should say, my views come from non-subscribers, which there is nothing wrong with that. You're not obligated to subscribe, but I certainly appreciate it if you would. If you've watched, especially if you've watched more than one or two videos and you like my channel and you like my style of teaching, it would certainly help me a lot to grow my channel, and that helps other people to see my material and help them to also learn more about Melt and Pour, or to be inspired perhaps by some of my design work. I do consider myself an artist first before a soap maker because I've been kind of an artist my entire life. It's just who I am. And the soap making has only been about 4 years. Maybe creeping up on 5 now. Yeah. Well, 4 years for sure. No, I think it's 4.5. Not that matters. But anyway, if you'd like to subscribe, please do. If you want to know when the upcoming videos are, which they're usually going to be Wednesday or Thursday. I'm really trying hard to get better at the consistency of that, but life gets in the way. And then I usually put out a short Friday or Saturday, the weekend usually. And if you subscribe then and you want to see everything, click the notification bell, and that will help you find my stuff. You'll get a notification every time I put out new content. And if you do subscribe but you don't want to see all that, it's annoying, you don't have to click the notifications if those bother you. But in just subscribing, you'll at least have my channel on hand and be able to find my stuff fairly easily. I do post in many of the Facebook soap groups, and a couple of those will feature my stuff at the top. I'm going to do a video someday on how to find all of that and how to find the description box, because it's hard to find sometimes. I thank you for your time. I appreciate every single one of you, your comments, your likes, your watches, your shares, and your support. You have been fabulous. I'm coming up on a year anniversary soon, and I thank you so much for being a part of my first year as a YouTuber and as a soap teacher, I guess. Soap educator, I don't know. Soap designer, I have no idea what to call myself there. But you've been so helpful and supportive, and I just want to thank you. That is, oh no, I do have a few more. I do show you every single soap in this one because they're so individual and unique. I wanted you to get a good look at them. Not great at the photography and of things, so the colors are a little wonky on some of them, but they're pretty true to color. They might be a little more vibrant in person, but I'm hoping that you did find something useful in here. Please, if I left something out, or if I left something, sometimes I interrupt myself, like just there. If I interrupted myself and didn't finish a sentence or didn't finish a thought, please comment. I'm happy to answer questions and happy to help you in your journey with creating Melt and Pour soaps and Melt and Pour soap art. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Thanks. Bye. Hey everyone. I'm going to work on my marbling technique today and talk about that as I make the soap. As usual, I will put up on the screen some bare info so that you at least know what I'm using. The bulk of my tutorial, though, is going to come through me rambling. So I have had a few requests recently for written instructions. That may come down the road in a paid membership type of thing, because that takes quite a long time for me to type out something like that, because as you know, if you've heard any of my video instructions before, I like to be very thorough, so I would have a hard time leaving out pertinent information, and it would become little mini books, and I don't have time for that right now. So so let's do some marbling. This is very similar to what I did in my recent Marbled Galaxy soap, and coming up on almost a year ago, my Nebula soap as well. It's a very similar technique. This is highlighting a different use for it, a different way for a different outcome, the different look. I'll play around with that more in the future as well. But this one turns out more like a stone or a gemstone. It has that look to it, and but using the same techniques basically. I vary it a little with each one of them because I'm an artist, and so I kind of go by what I see, kind of a thing here. I don't give amounts on mica. You see the amount you see the little spoon I'm adding. I don't weigh that out. I eyeball it basically, but I know what I need, so I don't need to. I did measure it out when I first began soaping and just got kind of used to what the needs were. I did make a rookie mistake here when I was coloring this little bit of soap that I poured off. By the way, real quick to interrupt myself, this amount, when I put 8 ounces, it's the amount I poured off from that larger pitcher. I didn't start with 8 ounces. I started with a full pitcher of about 32, 36, whatever that pitcher holds. It's a large pitcher. I think it holds about 38 if you push it to the limits. And I did that. And in the overall soap, I used more than that. And I'll talk about that a little bit more. But real quick, the rookie mistake I made was I used too light of a pink to try to get the shade I wanted. Just a reminder, when you are using any soap that is opaque or white in nature, or white in color, I mean in nature. What am I talking about? Titanium dioxide that I added because I did want it to be a pale pink. I probably should have started with the mica first of all. That would have been easier, and then add the titanium dioxide after. But I added a paler pink than I should have, because when you're mixing with white, it's going to be pastel. Well, I did want it to be a pastel. I also didn't want to waste a bunch of a lighter pink mica. And it was kind of a medium pink, but I didn't want to waste that time. So the other mistake I made, the one I referenced on the video up there, is because I added the titanium dioxide and then I added 2 different shades of pink, both dispersed in alcohol, and it was colder than it normally is for my area. I should have taken the temperature before I poured, but I didn't, and you could see already there were little telltale signs there of it kind of seizing up, and not seizing up in the way cold processed soap does. It was just solidifying. And so I get to that streak there, and the soap doesn't even move, and I panicked a little bit, but figured out a way to kind of fix it, and so I pulled over that soap. Melted soap that was sitting off to the side, and thought, okay, well, I can kind of get this mica to move a little, because I am going for kind of a streaked look, a marbled effect. And by the time I got to that top one there and here where it starts breaking apart a little bit, I realized I needed it a little hotter, because it's literally going to need to glue those little holes together and make sure everything is stuck together. So I'm reheating that one real quick, and I cut that part out. I always cut out the waiting time. So if you see me go from one thing to the next and suddenly a layer is solid, that usually isn't because of the temperature getting so cool like this. That was just a real rarity for me. I live in Florida. Things usually stay on the warm side too long rather than solidifying too fast. So anyway, so I reheated that, and now I'm taking the temperature here, and I think it was 130. That's my pouring temperature when I need it to adhere to something, when I need it to barely melt that bottom layer enough to stick to it. If I were pouring an entire bucket full at 130, it would probably start to melt that bottom layer. But because I'm pouring a very thin layer, it didn't need to. And so here I go. I did pour soap into that little cup that you see me drizzling around with. So that is soap with mica, fairly heavily mica'd, fairly heavily pigmented. And when you're doing swirls, you want to just be aware that if you're doing swirls in clear or in white, or really in any other color, if you're doing a swirl like that where it's very minimal soap that you're adding and you're looking for little streaks and such, you want it to be a little more heavily pigmented than you probably think. And this one here at the top that I just added a drop of the titanium dioxide in is that's still just the mica and alcohol. I have not added soap to this one, and you'll see the difference when I drizzle it on the soap. It's night and day. You can see how the alcohol starts dispersing it and spreading it in little circles, because it just goes outward from when you pour it. And it typically will, if you just left that alone, which I don't in this one, it will spread, and then it will start to kind of come back in toward the center in those drops. You can get some really cool, neat, fun effects with that using alcohol and mica. Just don't overdo it, because you do want it to become a part of the soap and not just sit on top and prevent the next layer from sticking. And in small amounts like this, we're fine. I just don't want someone to think you can pour an entire layer of alcohol and mica and then pour another layer of soap on top and it will magically stick to it, because it just won't. Cold process soap, you can do that, although they typically don't disperse it in in alcohol for that type of mica line and that kind of look. But this one, I reheated the rest of what was in that first layer and added a little bit more to it, so I had a little more to work with. And you see how it's starting to already set up. It's still colder than I anticipate. And I do end up turning on my heat to help combat that, and it helps a little bit. But you notice the minute I saw those wrinkles, and those won't hurt anything. When I put the clear layer over, you're not going to see the wrinkles. You might see some movement in the color that makes it look like that, but it actually is kind of a cool effect. But it doesn't look like soap kind of bunching up. And when you're doing a larger mold like this, know that sometimes one area will start to develop a skin and another area won't. And of course, this one is now fully set up. I'm doing a full-on clear layer. You can see that when I tip it. And I will rotate this a few times throughout because my table isn't perfectly level. And if you're doing multiple layers and you rotate it like that, it does help even everything out. I'm not looking for the layers to be even in a cross section, because that doesn't, that's not what you're looking at in this soap. You're looking at the top. It still looks pretty cool, but you're not judging it by those layers being perfectly even. So I don't care, and I just rotate it a little bit. I do care. It's just really hard to get my table level, so I don't care enough to worry about it that much. And that was just more of the white soap. Or light pink, really. It just shows as white here. I think it, and then again, 2 colors this time of just mica in alcohol. And here, this is right here. This is the main technique, is putting down something, soap with color, with a heavily pigmented color, or the mica in alcohol, or both, and drizzling clear soap over it. Or you can do another color, but you're going to get the effect a lot better if you're working with clear over the top. That's why I did the bottom layer with the light pink, and then I wanted to have a little bit of black swirled in there, which was kind of a fail, but it worked out okay anyway, because I kind of covered the part that made it look so harsh. So it just looks like little black inclusions within a gemstone. Or black swirls if you're just thinking, swirled soap, whatever you want to think of it as. This technique can be used for, like I said, a variety of different looks. I will be playing with a variety of colors soon and doing something that is a different look to it again, but using the same techniques and attempting to layer some colors in there that, excuse me, that are a little more diverse from this is all the same color family. It would be kind of similar to my Nebula and Galaxy soaps in that regard, but it's going to be lighter. It's going to have a lighter background kind of, or possibly just a clear background. I haven't decided yet. I'm sure eventually I'll get to both. But then just a little bit of glitter like mica. This is one of those... and I keep forgetting to look up the word. It starts with fluoro. I know that. And it's the synthetic micas that look like glitter and behave pretty much like glitter in soap, but they are soap friendly, skin friendly, and better for the environment than the plastic and aluminum type stuff. So I want you to kind of take a look at a couple of the techniques here. This one, I normally speed up my pouring and a lot of my process by 2 times in my videos, because I do, as you see here, I go kind of slowly. This one is not sped up, but I wanted, because we lost some of the footage with the cutting, I wanted to make sure I had enough time to talk to you about the technique, because that's the important part here. And what was I saying? great. I wanted to show you, and I think I passed it, the part where I was doing it, but I was pouring little spots of clear into the fluid layer of clear with the white and with the Sakura, the light pink mica, and it moves the other colors out of the way and puts an open space there. And so if you kind of start noticing that you're not seeing enough of your background colors, or you just want to vary it a little bit, it doesn't hurt to throw in just a little bit of clear that moves stuff out of the way. Of course, you have to do that before you have that particular layer sets up. So I'm always trying to be mindful of, is there anything in the background showing? Because I do want some of that background to show through. Otherwise, it'd be a waste of time and soap. And while I was trying to cover the harshness of the black, I didn't want it to totally disappear either. So there's that. I also didn't want this one to be a completely see-through soap. I wanted it to have a background because I wanted it to appear similar to a stone. So here again, this is the technique. That's just soap. It's not just titanium dioxide. There is titanium dioxide in it, but you don't want to just use titanium dioxide in amounts like this. And here this kind of shows, this is the basic technique, is how the clear moves the other colors out of the way or helps them to marble into, that's why I call it a marble effect. It looks like the colors are marbling into, as if you were looking at a marble, the colors, the way they marble into glass. That's what it reminds me of. It's different than some of the swirl techniques because I don't know, it gives me the image of almost like fabric floating in water or suspended in glass or something like that. It's like a marble. I don't know any other way to say it, I guess. But that's what it reminds me of. And then as you see here, you can play with it a little bit once you've poured it. I'm playing with it a little because I need to get something under that side because, again, my table isn't level. I'm going to have to re-level it every time because it's moving in and out of that room every time I soap. So the look of that moving is so cool. I love watching that soap move, but it also gives you a little bit of playtime. If you have a soap that is not the Crafter's Choice crystal clear that I use, just be aware that other brands may not stay as open as long. Now, I'm working on some techniques that allow some wiggle room for that coming up soon. Well, not real soon, but coming up in my future plans, because I'm right now planned through the end of March for what I'm planning to film. But I have some ideas I want to try and experiment with. You know, I do like to experiment with things. And one of those is some ideas I have for keeping this, giving more open time for works like this. Keep in mind, a soap like this, if you wanted to do this in a loaf mold, which, by the way, the mold is what determines how much soap you're going to use. I said I'd say earlier I did have to melt some more soap a couple of times because I didn't melt enough for the first time. And I knew that would be the case because I just wanted to stick to one bucket, have it fragranced, and then pour it off as I needed into smaller cups if I needed to pour something that was a different color. And it just makes it easier for me. And if you need to reheat, just reheat in very small increments. The first time you're always going to do about 30 seconds at a time, stirring in between. But after that, if you need to reheat, you know, start with 15 seconds or start with 10 seconds and see where it is. Over time, you start to learn what it feels like, the outside of the bucket, or you can take the temperature and know, okay, what, you know, how long do I need to pop this in again to get it to the temperature I want. But always be more cautious once the soap has been melted because it's much easier to overheat once it's already in a liquid state. So again, with another glitter, this is a glitter like mica. Sparkle Me Red from Mad Micas, as you saw me put up there. This was kind of my last little layer. I do spread it out a little bit with the clear. I kind of ran out in this moment. This is, oh yeah, I guess I didn't put clear over it. I was thinking I added a little clear right over the glitter, but I just let it set up and put my full last layer on. I do this with most of my marbled soaps and most of my soaps in general. I do it if there's any kind of layering to it. I do a top coat is kind of what I call it. It just gives it a little bit more dimension so that whatever the last thing you put in there isn't right up against the edge of the soap. I don't do these upside down. A lot of people would to get that nice crisp edge from the mold, but I choose instead to do what you see here. And this is one of the things that got lost. This is some of the footage that got lost was me using the vegetable peeler to facet the edges, or bevel the edges. I mean, it's a type of faceting really, but, and that gives it a more finished look if you want to do from the bottom up. I like to be able to see what I'm doing when it comes to these types of soaps that are really free form. And so I always start bottom up. I give you a decent amount of time to look at the close-ups this time because I just kept it, like I said, I didn't have it ×2 as far as the speed goes, but I did hold them up there for a good long time because I want you to be able to see the different effects that happen with this. It is, I mean, it's really cool. I love this technique, and you can see layer, at least I'm hoping you can see layer upon layer. You get some flashes here from the light catching this, and I apologize about that. We've had some difficulties with our lighting recently that we're trying to work on. Something changed, and we're just not sure what. So we're experimenting a little here, and but I still believe I catch enough of the actual soap so you can see the depth, the layers, and to see all the way to the bottom in some area of each soap, which was my goal. I did want it to have that similar to the Galaxy type soaps I do. I want it to have a lot of depth, and each one is completely individual. Some really capture the technique of the kind of fabric or silk kind of look, the real marbly, fabricy or color, whatever, floating in glass or floating in water or air or whatever whatever image it brings up for you. Some like this one, the spots, that was just a drizzle that dripped. And this is the part of the magic of doing this as an art form and just kind of winging it and just slinging it around. I mean, I'm careful with where I put it. I try to pay attention to what colors are underneath, so I'm not just stacking white on white on white on white in one area. This one is kind of white heavy in there, but you can still see some of the darker pink and the black underneath it. It also has a lot of glitter in this one. They don't all show up that much glitter in every bar, but there is glitter in every bar for sure. But that's just one of the fun things about freeform art with this is every bar is different. It is definitely art. There's no two bars that are ever going to look alike. I could not replicate them but I feel like they came out gorgeous. That one in particular reminds me. There's a few of them that really remind me of a gemstone called rhodochrosite. If you haven't seen it, you should look it up because it reminds me a lot of that. Not that it matters. It's just pretty. So I wasn't necessarily starting off. I wanted to call it pink marble because of the marbling effect I wanted to play with. So it wasn't even like the design in my head wasn't trying to emulate pink marble perfectly. So I was real happy with it regardless. Like I said, I'll be doing some multicolor ones soon so that you can get to see what it's like to mix the colors hopefully without muddying them. That's one of the things I was aiming for in the Galaxy soap and the Nebula soap that I make. But they are, it's easier to do that when you have darker colors when you have a darker background to it. When it's a lighter background or zero background like I'm contemplating doing with just clear and colors, just drizzling soap and drizzling mica in alcohol, and then just the glitter I tend to disperse dry. And sometimes the micas. Sometimes you'll see me, I kind of attempted to do that with the black, but it just didn't work this time because my open time was cut short with cold weather. So I kind of, you noticed I stopped adding just plain mica to this soap at that stage. I probably would have added another color just dry mica because it is a really cool look. But I didn't want to mess it up, and because the temperature was still fairly cool, and it was, I feel like my open time again was still a little bit limited. I didn't want to mess with that, so I kept just adding, using one with mica dispersed with alcohol, and it's a great look. As is the soap, the melted soap with whatever kind of pigment you like to use in it. I kind of rambled through this. I hope my instructions were fairly clear. If you have questions, please don't hesitate to ask in the comments, and leave me questions for my Q&A coming up on Valentine's Day. Real quick note about the temperatures when you're pouring on a layer that's already solidified. You want to go 130. If it's not solidified and it's still liquid, a little lower is a little bit better for this type of swirling technique. More like 125. Depending. I was playing with temperatures. I was cautious with temperatures after that first layer, so I don't think I went, I don't think I took it as low as I normally do, and you may have to adjust too according to your climate. These last little pics here real quick, these were mid-pour. I just couldn't help myself and took a few pictures while it was in the process, so I think they looked really cool, and I wanted to share them with you. But anyway, thank you. I hope you got something from this, and please like and subscribe. Thank you for joining me. I hope you have a great day. Thanks. Bye. Hey, everyone. We're going to make ocean marble soaps today, but first, let me introduce you to my partner in crime. Mr. Soaps and Such is with us today.
Hello. I'm back again for another video. We appreciate your positive feedback and want to get right into it here with this ocean marble soap. I'm anxious to see this.
So you will see some instructions on the screen, but the bulk of it's going to be in my voice. So if you don't have sound up, I do give you hints. Please turn it on every time. This is where you get your info. Melting the soap I already put up at the top of the screen. This is the coveted premium crystal clear soap, and it has been melted at 30-second increments, slowing that down to about 15 seconds as it gets closer to being melted. And you saw my fragrance up there. By the way, if you haven't tried Sea Minerals, you have to. It's amazing. I'm pouring about 1 to 1.5 ounces in these little cups. These are Mad Mica cups. Yes, I am an affiliate with them. You can also get these cups at other places. You can find them on Amazon as well. They just don't have the really cool Mad Mica's logo on them. They hold 3.4 ounces. I'm pouring about 1.5 ounces to 1 ounce in the blue one, I think. And all I'm doing is I'm creating, the first layer is my background. And I'm making a little swirl. Oh yeah, take note of that foreshadowing there. There's some spillage today. As usual. Do you expect anything else?
Shocking.
So I'm swirling here the Bermuda Triangle and the Twilight Blue. And in such a very tiny amount in here, like the most in this is going to be 3 ounces. And I don't think it's even that much. But it's such a thin layer that it's going to set up fairly quickly. And this means that your swirl is going to hold. If you tried this same exact swirl that I just did, and you filled that entire mold there up to the top just by pouring like I did, just 2 buckets of soap in, it's going to just make It'll be a pretty color, but it's going to make one color. You're not going to get a lot of swirling because it's going to meld together. But this is why we do the swirling in layers in this type of marble soap. If you haven't gotten the picture already, this soap now that you're looking at is set up. And I don't think enough people get that when I set it up or when I stop the camera and fast forward. I don't want you to have to watch soap set up. So you see me edit that out. It is now set up. And the only reason I'm saying this is because I know there was some confusion with one of my other soaps. Someone was thinking that I was continuing to add the layers without it setting up at all. I do add a little bit, and I'll try in this one to let you know what's going on as far as when it's set up. So I'm pouring. I know it took me a while to get this temperature, and that's just has to do with the camera and getting that being able to get the angle correct for that. But I'm pouring at about 130, and I'm just pouring a very small amount. It's about a quarter of an inch at the most, more like 1/8 of an inch maybe. And then I'm going to put in a few colors. This is the marbling technique, is putting in a few colors in a variety of ways, and then pouring a little bit more clear over that same layer and letting that clear move the soap and marble it. That's where you get the marble effect. And then I'm typically not going to do more than 3 colors, or maybe 3 colors and a glitter. This right here is dispersed in alcohol. There's no soap in that one that I just flung. Anytime you see little spots, and this is just dry mica. So those colors are not being added with soap. One in alcohol, one not. Now here's, I pour the clear, and you'll see it starts to move the colors. And with this one, I'm come in with the stick and move it a little. I prefer to kind of sling the dry micas around a little bit. And I use the stick frequently to help me move the colors and swirl a little bit. Trust me, you do not want to try to stir. And you don't want to try to do swirls in the same way that cold process soap makers do. That's too much swirling for our type of soap. It's just going to mix it in and muddy the colors. The less, the better. And that is soap. That is that I poured in with the white. It is clear soap with Sparkle Me Aqua and just a drop or two of titanium dioxide. And oh, here comes my favorite spill. But watch the colors moving too. That's how we get this effect. And there we go. Now it's Miss Terry's.
It's official. It's official. It's official.
Oh, but yeah, I got to keep going. So what I do is I keep going and pouring because the layer isn't done yet, and I'm not going to compromise the soap to clean up that mess. What I do is when I get that layer set up and it's starting to dry, which is now, then I allow that spill to dry. It's much easier. It was right there on my clean, disinfected, sanitized mat. And what I will do is peel it up and melt it again, and you'll see me use that soap later because it's good, viable soap. If it spilled on the floor, that'd be a different story. Where you see me pouring the clear in here over these colors, even though I already had them swirled, I'm kind of just clearing a little space. You still want to see a little bit of that bottom color showing through. Otherwise, it's pointless to have it there. I mean, not pointless because it does give a deep, dark background, but I want some of that to show through. So every time you see me pouring clear in a spot, I'm moving a little bit of the marbling out of the way.
How long do you let it set before you start adding the new stuff?
Great question. Typically, 20 minutes is good. It really does depend on your soap base and your environment, though. So just take a stick or a stir stick or one of your little spatulas and tap it. And if you want it fully set up, you're not waiting like an acorn swirl. You only want a thick skin. This isn't that. You want it to fully set up between these layers, and it set up, and now this is a new layer with starting with more clear. Again, key to the marble technique. And here we go with Harold's Purple Crayon. One real quick thing I want to add that I would change. I always tell you what I would do different other than not spilling the soap. I would spray the Harold's Purple Crayon a little bit better with the alcohol. I just did 2 little spritzes, and I didn't quite catch some of the ones at the top. and it just got a little splotchy. It's not bad. I just would have preferred it to swirl in a little bit more. It was so dark, I didn't really notice it. So that was on me. Now, I don't know if you noticed, I added a little bit more titanium dioxide to that white. But again, that's the white that spilled, same thing. But I'm adding more titanium dioxide every layer that I go with that. And you'll see a little bit at the end, there's even a layer with just a tiny bit of titanium dioxide. I'm going for a look here in the beginning of this. I'm trying to do, if you were above the ocean in whatever, a balloon.
If you had a drone.
If you had a drone
video up over it. Yeah.
And a camera looking down at the ocean. I wanted kind of a swirly ocean, real deep out in the ocean, so you could see some of the waves cresting and you could see a little bit of the foam going on some of the waves. That's the look, but you can see the really deep areas, the deeper, darker areas. That's what I'm going for. That isn't how it turns out, though. But it turns out really pretty. It's just not the look I intended. And I'm not upset about it at all. I do find that, and it kind of shows in this layer, I think, a little bit. I find it much easier in the larger slab mold. It's harder in the small mold. But I wanted to see if I could do it. That was part of this experiment for two reasons. One, I wanted to just see if I could do it. I know you don't all have slab molds, and you were trying to find them, and the same one that I have is not available on Amazon anymore. So some of them can get quite expensive. So you can do it in a loaf mold. It's just not as fun. Like
the Nebula.
Yeah.
You make in the larger mold.
Yeah, the Nebula, the pink marble soap that I did.
Yeah.
And what's the marbled galaxy soap that I did? All of those were in that big slab mold. And one of them I'm sure will be linked in the end cap, in the end little thing that gives you suggested videos. I'll link at least one of those in there, or the playlist that has them, so you can see what I'm talking about. But that slab mold is easier and a little more fun because you can kind of sling the colors around a little bit more. I feel like there's more control. So that was set up. I don't know if you see now when I'm pouring the clear, nothing's happening underneath because it's a fully set up soap.
I think it's more obvious when you move it diagonally left and right like you did. That was pretty good.
I kind of thought that made it obvious, but I don't think everybody caught that.
Because you can see that the soap isn't doing anything. It's
right.
Like, hey, look, it's set up. And how do I know it's not sloshing around? That's how I know.
Right. And that's kind of, well, that's part of why I did it, and to also ensure coverage from side to side. But yeah, I don't think everybody caught that the last few videos I did, so I just want to be sure. Now, sea glass is an amazing color, and I absolutely love it, but we have problems, and it isn't Mad Micah's fault. It is my fault, and I didn't even really interpret my problem. It wasn't that I poured too cold. I didn't pour enough soap in that. I was making a last-minute decision. Do I want this in soap, or do I want it just in alcohol? And I wasn't sure what I was doing at that moment. And I made the decision to add soap, but I didn't add enough. I added almost the amount I would add if I were adding alcohol, which made the whole thing kind of just set up too quickly because it cooled super fast. But it cooled fast because I didn't add enough soap. So that was all my fault. And I don't like the way it's going. I was panicking here. It wasn't mixing. It wasn't swirling. All it was doing was kind of cloudying things up. You can't quite see it on camera. But the Sparkle Me Aqua in with it, it just got really cloudy, so it didn't work. So you have to fly by the seat of your pants. There's always a way to fix it. So my way to fix it here was to get rid of that layer because everything underneath it was beautiful. So I dumped the layer back in. It is not wasted soap. That's going to become little crystal pieces for something else. Because, and of course I almost spill it again. The almost spills in this are more than the spills. It's crazy. I have spatial relationship issues, and so that's what happens. Also, trying to keep everything under the camera sometimes makes it the spacing a little bit tight. So this last layer is kind of my Hail Mary. this was like, can I save this soap? Because getting that layer off was key, but I still wanted to try to get a look of the sea. And then I thought maybe I could go for a shoreline look. So that's kind of what I was going for at my little Hail Mary at the end, which you'll see. Several of you have asked me about this maneuver here. And I'm sorry, my voice is getting froggy. Let me grab a sip of water real quick while you watch
I was going to
this.
say, I really like, excuse me, I like how the soaps look like space or water. Like this one's ocean marble, but I really like how just by stirring it around and having that little bit of glitter and a little bit of mica, it just sitting a certain way, it just gives it that space feel.
Okay, I hate to interrupt, but this part here is really important. You saw me say 1 drop, and the further details that I was talking about, you cannot do this technique on the first layer. You're going to end up with titanium dioxide on the outside of your soap. This is a mid to top layer technique. The titanium dioxide will sink, and if you add too much or move it too much, it's going to make a hot mess, and it won't incorporate into the soap. Because I just used 1 drop and I flung it kind of all across that one side, it all incorporated and now is soap and not just lumps of titanium dioxide sitting in soap that will get all over your hands. Won't hurt anybody, but it might freak somebody out a little bit, and it might create kind of a weird hole in your soap when you go to cut it. So 1 drop is all that's needed for that technique. Now, you tell me, I don't think that ended up looking like a shoreline. With that, that's kind of what I was going for. That last.
Is that why it's on that one side? Oh yeah, because you have to remember which part is going to be the frame.
Mm-hmm.
I don't hear you say that a lot, but I know that you're intending to. But if people are thinking of it, when you're creating Melt and Pour soap as a soap art form, your soap is the frame. And so depending on whether you're in a slab or you're in one of these loaves, you got to see which way which way is it going to actually be once you've cut it into the little pieces, and then you can look through and go, oh wow, like not even knowing what was coming, how it was really going to turn out before you cut it. And
that's one reason I put, now not for so much for this soap, but for a lot of my soaps, you'll see me I have marks on the sides of some of my molds, and that's so I can see where I'm going to cut. So if I'm putting embeds in, I know that they're going to be within the frame of that particular soap as I cut them, because you don't want like half a mermaid in your soap. Well, you do end up with half a mermaid with the mermaid tail soaps, but you don't want part of that tail cut off, so you need to see where it is. So I mark it. With these, it's not that precise, but you still need to have an idea of the image you're going for. And while I was going for that, the last little ditch effort to make it look like the ocean, I was saying, okay, well, we'll go from the deep ocean to a shoreline by adding that. And to me, I mean, it doesn't look like a shoreline. It does look like an ocean picture to me, but what it looks like to me is that you're on the ocean floor. Like your view is, when I turn it back around, like I don't know, I was just looking at it this way because I look at them from all angles. That's kind of part of how to perceive it the best to me.
So what's this the view of?
The ocean floor. So if you were at the ocean floor with a mask on or whatever, or a camera, and you're viewing, and floating up from the ocean floor it either looks, you could say that's somebody stirring up the sand. You could say it's a little bit of activity on the ocean floor. I see like little phantoms. I don't know. I that's just what the image that popped in my head. See ocean phantoms. Of what? I don't know.
Well, in the Marianas Trench, have you ever seen those documentary videos that way down there? That's like miles down. It's like 36,000 feet or something. How many ever miles down? And there are some translucent, is that the right word? Transparent, translucent, whatever.
Yeah.
Creatures like that. So that's actually kind of deep ocean looking to me.
Yeah, it could definitely be. Yeah, you could be at the very bottom of a very deep part of the ocean. And there you'll find, jellyfish are transparent. You find those all over. There are a lot of really interesting looking transparent creatures in the sea. Someday I am going to do one that includes glow in the dark pigment, because you also have bioluminescence down there. You have, and at the shore, you have bioluminescence in the sea. So things that will glow on their own, they create their own light. And I'm going to be playing with that in the future for sure. That just reminded me of that.
Yeah. And so you're having to do the little nicks at the end there, little notch marks, so you know where the thing is going to be to cut. And then you're just eyeballing it. You do it on both sides, right?
Yeah, I do it on both sides, and I really don't eyeball it that much. I really try to line it up in those. And that's why I'm kind of, if you can notice this time, I'm coming in from each side a little bit with that knife. Normally I had been just making one single mark, and I find that's harder to see.
So you're doing a wedge.
Yeah,
a
little. I did this time. This is the first time I've ever done that. I feel like the single line is harder for me to see. I'm old, but it was easier to see this time and make sure that knife was lined up before I pushed down. Now the part that is a little bit loosey-goosey is you also have to make sure that that knife is straight up and down. And sometimes you'll see me really moving it around within the camera angles, because I'm trying to make sure I can see where that knife is sideways, the side angle of it, to make sure it's not going to cut a wedge or cut a soap that's really off kilter. I think I did a pretty good job this time.
Yeah, I was just picturing needing paramedics nearby when I start learning how to do soaps. Like just how different the experience will likely be if I'm the one doing the recording, or during the recording, if I'm the one doing the cutting.
Well, and that's a good point, because what I would tell you and any of our viewers that are doing this knife is extremely sharp. It's a double-handled cheese knife, and they are really sharp. But here's the key: slow. You got to there are times in Melt and Pour where you have to move fast, or your soap's going to set up. But when it comes time to cut, don't move fast. You have to be slow and take your time. Get everything lined up the way you want it. Make sure everything is out of the way, meaning like thumbs and fingers, and then push down. And you just that's what takes me so long to cut these. Just 3 soaps. I could have done it in 2 seconds if I wanted to, but I might have cut my finger off, or I might have cut them really badly.
It's like, ooh, look, Mr. Soap's cut his finger again.
I'm really hoping that's not in your future.
I'm just kidding. Don't manifest it. Don't manifest
right.
it. Isn't it funny? That's the thing you can manifest just by saying it, but you don't accidentally say, "Bosh, what if? Hope I don't win $563 million from the Mega Millions." Just accidentally manifesting things. But you
Oops, I didn't mean to say that out loud.
I can accidentally manifest a flesh wound, though. These look so cool. I love the one in the middle there with the
yeah, that's my favorite, actually.
See, that's what I mean about the frame. Sorry to cut you off there, but this part, I love when we do the close-ups. Go ahead, Terry.
No, I totally get you. That circular one was one of my favorite little ones. I don't know if you see what I see. I know a couple of you on Facebook did mention the ghosts and the phantoms, and you did see what I was talking about. Or sea creatures, whatever you want to call it. But do you understand the image? I don't know if you all see it. If you see the images of like something moving along the bottom of the ocean floor, let me know, because you might see something totally different. You might see clouds in the sky, and it doesn't matter what you see. If you like it.
It's a Rorschach test.
Yeah.
Test, isn't that what it is? Rorschach?
I have so many Rorschach tests.
Say that 10 times fast.
I can't.
I can't either.
And I'm pretty good with tongue twisters.
I
can't
barely
do that
could
one.
say it one time fast. Rorschach.
Rorschach. It's a very obnoxious
Isn't that
word.
a character from Mr. Carter?
Yes.
Welcome back, Carter.
Oh, no, that's Horseshack.
Anyway, this is really cool. I like that. I like that we can get a little nice close. Sorry, I keep clearing my throat there. There's supposed to be a little cough button. My cough button is here.
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't know. Didn't know we had a cough
Rogan
button.
has them. Rogan installed them. Literally has one right next to him. He hit a square button so that when he coughs, he can just hit the button, cough real quick, and then not have to stop the whole thing.
Okay. Well, someday I'll have to learn to use that, I guess. So these are the close-ups. In a moment, you're going to see the Lightbox pictures. I really feel like the color is truer in the video pictures, and the very last one. It's sometimes hard to balance the lighting in the Lightbox the way I want it, because I'm not a great photographer. So I'll just say that I'm just not. I can fake it pretty well, but sometimes my lighting is difficult. Even in a Lightbox, it's just not always accurate to the colors. I think this is pretty true to what we saw.
Yeah, you can see through it. Like you can see through the different layers. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I mean it looks. The one on the left just looks like a sea. It looks like you could, like a space. Like you're going through some kind of.
Yeah, that and the dimension.
Cloud. Yeah.
Oh, sorry to interrupt.
No.
Yeah, the dimension, that's one of the things I love. And one of the reasons I love Melt and Pour is that clarity and the ability to create soaps that you want to dive into, as my daughter mentioned on Facebook. She said she wanted to dive in. And it does give me that feeling. See, they're a little darker.
That's why I do the zoom in when I'm editing these like that. It's like to go in close.
Well, if you have gotten this far, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Please don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy this type of content. And if you have any questions, any comments, if there's something I left out or you don't understand, please feel free to leave that in the comments. And what do you?
Yes, and we'll be doing more content like this with both of us involved. And we really appreciate your support. Looking forward to doing more videos for you. And boy, that was a cool angle there. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye. Hey, everyone. We're going to marble some Melt and Pour soap today. I love marbling with Melt and Pour soap. There are a few out there who do not believe or are just not sure that you can marble with Melt and Pour soap, but it's very doable. So hang in with me and I'll show you how. I am doing a marbled soap today because the Soap Challenge Club, which is a cold process only club, they are doing marbled soaps this month. And that has inspired me to do my version. And I don't do cold process soap for many reasons. I have nothing against it. I just don't do it. And that's a story for another day. But however, I still can participate on my own, not with them. I can't submit anything, but just for fun, for me, and seeing all the pretty marbled cold process soaps out there, I can do mine. So I chose to do a turquoise look soap today. I wanted it to look like the gemstone turquoise, not just the color. And so I'm playing around with that, and I hope you'll join me, and I certainly hope you'll try this technique. It's really not that hard. It just requires a little bit of paying attention to your temperatures and to, just following the pattern of what you see. What do you like? The colors I'm using, I won't go into all of them yet, kind of as I'm showing them. I do put this up in the text. As you'll see, I'm putting the ingredients all in the text, and everything else is pretty much just going to be me describing to you what I'm doing, hopefully making sure that you understand what's going on in the picture there. So I'm just prepping my colors. I did melt a full pitcher of the Premium Crystal Clear soap and the 3 Butter Plus soap, both from Crafter's Choice. They are lower melt soaps, so if you see anything about temperatures or hear me say anything about temperatures, just remember that these are lower temperatures than some of the other soap bases out there. You can adjust accordingly to your soap's melting point. You just have to know it and have to know whether you're going to be under it or over it. So you do always want to take your soap a little bit over at least, because you're going to be likely stirring in fragrance. And I think that was 132, by the way. I just flashed it because when I speed it up, it sometimes goes a little too fast, but I'm pretty sure that one was 132. I'm popping in my fragrance oil right now. I'll come back to the bases in a second. Interrupting myself again. But sometimes this is Tranquility from Brambleberry, which I think I may have already told you. But it is, and it's a smell that I have loved for a very long time. Well, I've also owned this bottle of fragrance for a very long time, and I believe that might be catching up to me a little bit. It's a little cloudy when I go to stir it in. However, Brambleberry fragrances tend to be a little thicker than some, as do the ones from Makesy. And they're both fabulous, fabulous fragrance oil suppliers. I can't speak highly enough of them. But they also, because they're a little thicker, sometimes they take longer to stir in. Sometimes, like you just saw me, anytime you see me pull the pitcher away and it comes back quickly, very likely I'm either heating it a little bit more or remelting or something like that. And I cut it immediately because you do not want to sit there watching an empty table while I'm over at my microwave and, waiting for soap to melt. So I cut that out, and you just kind of have to watch for when you see the pitcher pull away from the camera, from the table. I'm usually reheating it a little. I reheated this a little bit, like for 15 seconds or so, in about 2 bursts, and it definitely cleared it up. I didn't bother adding a little bit of blue soap dye, like we sometimes do in Melt and Pour, to make it clear up. It has a tiny tinge of yellow in there, but it's not going to matter in this soap, I promise you, so I didn't bother with it. I do add a little of the blue, not to get rid of yellow, but in this white one, you'll see in a moment, and I'll explain why I did that. It didn't really work for what I wanted to, but I was still able to achieve it with a different type of blue. So I'm fragrancing these. The double batch there in the larger pitcher. It's half and half because I wanted it to be a light color. I wanted it to be opaque because it's turquoise. Turquoise is typically very opaque. And I do add a little bit of clear swirls in here because I wanted some depth. Regardless, I chose that over the perfect replication of turquoise, the turquoise gemstone, because part of how I marble is by pouring a little bit of clear and kind of breaking up the colors. I used a lot less clear, and I did include some glitter in that clear. You'll see that come up in a moment as well. But so this 3 butter mix, something to be cautious with when you're doing a marble pour or a maybe a swirl, like what do you call it, acorn swirl or a freestyle swirl. Whatever you're doing, just be aware when you're using a soap base you haven't used before, even if it's by the same company, it might behave a little differently. So just to kind of, either test it first or just be ready to work with it a little differently. I'm putting out some titanium dioxide here because the ectoplasm, which is stunning and just gorgeous from Mad Micas, I love it. It was a little more intense than I thought it was going to be. That's another reason I put part clear in there, is because I didn't think it was going to be as intense, and I wanted to have enough to make it opaque and keep it lighter in color. But I included some clear because I thought I might have to use too much of the ectoplasm in it to get the shade of turquoise I wanted. It appears much lighter before you mix it in with alcohol. And while I wasn't disappointed in this at all, I just didn't expect it. So I came back in. It actually, on the camera, at least here where I'm looking at it, it looks pretty darn close to what it ends up to being, but it was much darker outside of the camera. So I lightened it with some titanium dioxide. I put a couple drops of the blue soap dye. That didn't really do that much. for it, and I figured I'd have to use way too much of that, and that bleeds. It probably wouldn't matter in this soap, but I changed my mind and went to some mica. I used Aphrodite because it's a lighter blue, and again, it was already darker than I was kind of fighting with that a little bit. So I added Aphrodite because it's a little on the lighter side. I possibly could have used less of a darker color like Twilight, maybe, or Key West blue, something like that. Um, but I went with the lighter just to be safe. And I was kind of working on the fly there with that because I hadn't expected to want it a little less green. It is, it's a beautiful shade of turquoise, and actually, it is definitely one of the many shades of actual turquoise stone. But there are many shades, and I wanted a certain one. So that's just me being picky. You don't have to add Aphrodite. It's just what I did to tone down the greenish tone or the greenish shade a little bit. And I got to the color I wanted. I, again, didn't have to. I am doing something a little unique here. You may have seen me doing this in some other soaps, and that is not dumping, but I'm putting the mica in dry. There are a few different ways to do that. One of the ways I'm doing in here is to spritz it with alcohol first and then kind of, I don't know, sling it. Not really. That's not the right word. Drag it across the top layer. It helps it to disperse a lot better than if you just kind of dunk it all down and stir like you're normally stirring. You'll see me do it again in a minute because I wanted a little more blue. And watch the way I'm stirring it in. I'm kind of dragging it through at the very top as much as I can. Yes, some is going to sink, and you might get a few little beads of it that kind of pop up that aren't stirred in yet, and you spray with alcohol again. Now, if this were a soap where I wanted everything exact and perfection and all that, I probably wouldn't have done that. I would have dispersed it in alcohol. But in a gemstone, if you have a couple of little specks of color here and there, it's not going to hurt anything. It's just going to make it look more natural, a little bit more organic. So I didn't mind if it happened. It didn't. I didn't find a single speck, but just in case, it saved me a little time and ended up being just the way I wanted it. This soap turns out quite beautifully. I was very, very happy with it overall. So now I'm making the rest of my colors. If you noticed, the bucket I melted with all that clear, I think it was about 25 ounces, was dispersed among several different little buckets or little pitchers. I did one. You see the black that I did was alcohol was charcoal and a little glycerin dispersed to make a black. And then the copper, I don't know if I've added the soap to that already, but I think I must have because I just added the Sparkle Me Aqua, which I love. That keeps it, believe it or not, when you're looking at it right there, it doesn't look very clear at all, just down in the bucket. But that's because you're looking through a huge amount of it. We'll see once I start pouring, and even more when I bring the soaps up at the end. I'm not putting individual pictures in here. I'm just bringing them up at the end to the camera so you can see each one. And you'll see how that clear ends up. It is quite see-through and does have a really nice sparkle to it. The paper towel you see me folding there is just to lift that side of it a little because my table's still uneven. And I didn't want to put little sticks under it. I am using a new mold in here, and it's a little soft on the bottom, and I didn't want it to leave marks. So I was a little paranoid, and I used a folded paper towel, which is a little softer. If it's going to do anything to it, it's not going to be that apparent. So you see me drizzling the black. If the black doesn't move right away, because I am pouring very thin streams of it, that it might be cooling a little faster than normal or just a little faster than I expected. So that's where I pulled up the stick. And I do that several times in here to avoid having to reheat something right away. And I'm just layering. And I'm layering the various colors and swirling them a little and then adding another layer. By the time this soap is done, you're not going to see the bottom of it through the top. It's not that transparent. It's just got a little bit of transparency within the layers, but you will have a soap that has a different look as you use it. Each layer is slowly revealed, and it will look really cool. I kept the copper that you're seeing me use, the Supernova, which is a mic I couldn't think of last week when I was trying to do a voiceover, but Supernova is Mad Mica's beautiful copper that is quite sparkly. And as I was using it in there, it is quite a stark contrast to the ectoplasm. And I really do like it, but for some reason I didn't feel like adding it to the top layer. So I just left it as kind of a middle surprise that you get to as you use the soap. Sometimes I like to do that. Throw something in there that you might not expect. But certainly I like it to be different as you go through, or maybe the design the whole way through. But with a marble, not really. You're not going to achieve that because it is so unique and so different. Each piece is different. Each layer is just going to, as it wears away, it's going to change. The pictures are going to change. The design is going to shift. It's all going to be stunning, but different little swirls, different little pockets of the clear sparkle, different little flash of copper here or there. So that's basically what I'm doing. I don't ever at this point let it set up fully. I've done that in some of my marbling technique. I get to a certain point and need to let it set up. So I let it set up fully and then start in with a very hot layer. I didn't do that this time. I didn't reheat anything until the very, very end. I just kept going. I did give a pause for about 2 or 3 minutes to let it firm up at one point. But that's because it was just a little too liquidy and I didn't want to destroy the whole thing. So I just let it set up a little bit. You can tell when it starts getting a firmer, a little bit of a skin on it that's not just a thin skin that will automatically fold away as you pour something on it. Because I didn't want it to all blend together. I didn't want a mushy, grayish turquoise mess. So you learn to get a feel for that when you're doing these, what a thick skin feels like, and when you can pour on top of it, and when you'll break through. So I just kept layering. The actual technique that is the marbling is kind of what you saw me just do there. I'm pouring over the little accent colors and moving them. Soap moves soap. There's other ways. Alcohol also moves your soap. There's a lot of different ways, and you can use a stick to move it around too. But when it's fluid enough, and you pour, it's going to move the other colors in a very organic way. It is helpful to use colors that will blend just fine. In case they do, if you were, sometimes you could end up with just a brown mess. That can happen sometimes if you're not careful with which colors you choose. But turquoise and black and clear with a little sparkle in it, I figured would be just fine. Even if that copper went a little haywire and through it, it might cause some little spots of brown, but that would also be a legitimate look in turquoise. Sometimes you do have little bits of brown or copper or silver or gold. Oh boy, was it a tough choice what accent to color to choose with that. I may do one down the road with silver just because you can find turquoise with all of those as a part of the gemstone that are like a little inclusion within it. So I chose the copper this time, but I think next time I'll choose something else. I do have a different style of turquoise soap to show you. It's not a marbled look. It's a completely different way to create a. This is a swirl. It's a modified type of a swirl, but the other one that I do in a loaf mold is a faux swirl of a type, and that will be down the road because I need to order a couple of different, at least one different soap base. It's been years since I've done it, but I love it, and I hope that I can recreate it for you soon in another video. All you see me doing here is it's mostly set up at this point, and so I just took the time to the opportunity to follow the lines of my mold. This mold was from Nature's Garden, I believe. I will double check for that, and I will put the link in the description box of the video. And this comes with little markings, it's just like my hot pink one, to be honest with you. It is so much like it. If you've seen me use that one, it's the same size, which is, a lot of people will say it's 10 by 10. It's not. It's 10 by 10 and a half. And while that doesn't make a huge difference, it does make a difference. So the markings give you 12 beautiful rectangle soaps, beautiful size. I did not fill it, as you can see. I'm hoping you can see that I filled it. Actually, I think less than halfway. I'm not sure, but close to halfway. And that was the thickness I wanted. As you might be able to see when I flip this over, it is, there you can see the turquoise right through it. So it is translucent enough for you to still see where the soap is and where the soap isn't, which is also helpful as you're unmolding. But as you're filling it, it's real helpful to just glance at the side, and you can see how high the soap comes up from the outside, which gives you a really good indicator of how thick your soap's going to be. So that's why I stopped when I stopped. Well, truth be told, I honestly needed a little extra soap if I was going to keep going, but it was sufficient, so I left it at that. And I liked the way the top looked. So that's kind of one of the things I do with these, is I keep going until I like the top and make sure it's thick enough. I don't want, I don't want a bar half an inch thick. That's a little too thin. So I aim for an inch, maybe a little bit more, depending on the soap I'm doing. And I just mark while it's in the mold, because then once you take it out, you can still, the marks are there. If you are someone who does beveling, which you'll see maybe by my little potato peeler there that does not peel potatoes, that I do bevel these. If you bevel, then it wouldn't hurt you to do a little V cut, just a little bit. It's a little easier to see when you're lining up that knife to cut it. And the type of knife I'm using is a double-handled cheese knife. That's just the type I prefer for these kinds of soaps. For loaf molds, I adore, as you may know, my Uncle Andy's soap cutter, or as I like to call it, and several others do too. I'm sure I didn't name it that, but the Uncle Andy's soap guillotine, because it looks like a little mini guillotine, and you don't want to get your fingers in the way because you may not end up with them after. It's very sharp. Well, this knife is quite sharp too. So be careful in cleaning it. It's very easy to injure yourself cleaning one of these really sharp surfaces. You won't realize how sharp it is, and it might go right through your rag. And you think, oh, I'm safe because I'm not touching it. I've got a thick rag here. Just be safe. Just don't push anything against that blade for cleaning. Wipe away from it. It's much easier. But it's a very nice sharp blade. I use it to cut my big blocks too. When I buy soap in like the 23-pound blocks, or if you buy the large blocks from Stevenson's, those are quite hefty and difficult to cut without something like this. That's the way I prefer to do it anyway. So I cut it up. I sometimes will cut it in big chunks and put those big chunks in something else, and then come back and cut it smaller later. And sometimes I cut up the whole thing and store it in a container. I like those Rubbermaid containers for that. But as you see here, it makes kind of short work of it. I tend to take my time with it because I like to line it up properly before I push down on that. But if you make a little bit of a mess and you are doing what I'm doing now, which is beveling, and I love the look of a bevel in something like this where it won't destroy the design, but it can get rid of those little marks that might not be quite on the money. If you start to put the knife down just a tiny bit and you find you have to move it a little, it will remove that. Or can remove that depending on how far off you are. But if you're off just like a tiny, tiny fraction of an inch, don't worry about it. it comes right off. So I'm starting to get a little more comfortable with this potato peeler I had, or vegetable peeler, whatever you want to call it. I had one back in Florida that I really was in love with. It was the kind that looked a little bit more like a razor, just the shape of it, like maybe a man's razor on your, not that kind that looks like there, but the kind that has the blade going across the handle rather than up and down like that. Um, but I'm getting a little more confident with this. It's harder to do a thin, small bevel with it. It does a fairly thick one, but I'm gaining better control over it. I am eventually going to I have a beveler in mind that I would like to buy that is made specifically for Melt and Pour soap. When I do and when I receive it, I will definitely share it with you and share where I got it and share the demonstration of it and how much I love it, or if I don't love it, I'm not crazy about it, I'll share all of it with you. I'll be really honest with you. It's not something I'm honest with you anyway, even if I'm an affiliate of someone. I don't, I don't, all of my sponsorship type things are affiliate links, which means I am not obligated to tell you things are wonderful when they're not. I hope that makes some sense to you. So while I'm just doing the beveling, which needs, I'm hoping no instruction, because I'm just kind of cutting the corner edges off, just the outside edges. I don't go and do the whole thing with this soap, but you can. While I'm doing that, and as I'm getting ready to bring them up to the camera, I absolutely love the way these came out. But I got a quick story for you, and it's not even really a story, but it's kind of interesting to me anyway. Um, I love the stone turquoise. I love it, especially chunks like that, where larger chunks where you can see the swirls. But I haven't always loved it. It is my birthstone. I'm a December baby, and it's my birthstone, one of several birthstones. Growing up, there were always two for December, and I never understood why. I still don't. And now there's a third one in there somewhere. I don't even know what it is. But there was always, and when I say always, I'm talking about always, on my grandma's dish towel that had the calendar really old. This is kind of gonna date me, but there was those old dish towels that had calendars on them, and there was one that had a specific not link, it had a specific chart. That's the word I'm looking for, on birthstones. And as a really young child, I liked to look at all the birthstones. I was obsessed with jewels and stones and sparkly things, and I still am, obviously. But I was very disappointed in turquoise. Why? Because it wasn't see-through. If you've followed me for long, you know that part of why I do glycerin soap or melt and pour over cold process soap is I am still, some 50 some years later, I'm still quite obsessed with see-through things, as whether they have a color or not. But I really do love colored things that are see-through, like colored glass, colored waters. Glass art is a huge big deal for me, and that's why when I came across Melt and Pour, I was obviously immediately obsessed with it, with the look of it, and that's way before I ever tried it. But there is the other birthstone that was there was blue zircon, and that is a clear stone. And so I always, when people would ask me my birthstone, I wouldn't say turquoise. I would always say blue zircon. I'm pretty sure I probably got in a couple of arguments with people trying to tell me it was turquoise. And I would say, well, it's blue zircon and turquoise, but blue zircon is better. I'm probably said it just that snotty too. I don't know. I don't remember, but I do remember being upset by anybody telling me my birthstone was turquoise, or buying me something turquoise rather than something see-through. I'm way past that part of it. I have learned to at least be able to enjoy the beauty of some of the rocks that aren't see-through, because I've kind of just become, over the years, an overall rock hound. So I'm hoping that you can see the beauty in these, even though there's a little bit of the see-through look. These are definitely uh, glycerin soap, melt and pour soap, not cold process, but this is my version of the marbling technique. I hope you have enjoyed it. And I thank you for hanging out with me today and taking a look at my marbling technique. I do have several others of this type of video using this technique, and I will share at least one of them probably at the end screen. And I will also share my activated charcoal and titanium dioxide video on how I disperse them in glycerin, because I did both of those within this video. And if you haven't seen it before, it might help you understand how I go about that. So I appreciate so much everything you guys have done for me as a channel, because I've had a lot of wonderful support. Thank you so, so much for being here, and I'll see you on the other side soon. Thanks. Bye. Hey, everyone. Let's get going quickly because I have a lot to explain to you. I've got a lot of explaining to do. Um, I messed up with the recording. I'll tell you that a little bit later. But right now, let's talk about what I used. I know most of this information is in the text at the top that you will see. But just to kind of go over it real quickly, I used the same detergent free oatmeal that I used in last week's video. Please look it up. It's the Dean Wilson video, because I was inspired to continue that ocean theme by doing Dean Wilson's seabed soap. So I used the detergent free oatmeal, the apricot seed powder, and the sparkle sunshine for the first layer. Just about a quarter inch is what I poured. And then I ruffled it up a little bit. I just kind of textured it, um, just kind of by bending the mold a little bit and shaking it around. And then the next layer was, of course, the seashells I put in as the oatmeal soap was still a little warm, but even where it wasn't, I still put them on there. It was just fine. They kind of stuck to it just good enough. And I then poured, oh, the seashells, real quick, were made just in the same way you saw me last week, only I added a little pink taffy to some of them. You can look that up on that same video. And then I started changing it a bit. The whole idea of it is more of a top-down seashore look, and I poured a little bit of clear first, premium crystal clear, and then I poured just a little tiny, just strips while the clear's still hot. Pour little tiny stripes or drizzles of the Key West blue, and then of the peacock. And I picked up the clear again and kind of poured that around to move or marble the blues. And that is kind of the gist of marbling. You'll see a better demonstration of that um, it, coming up very soon in this video. And then next week, I am going to do another video on marbling and a compilation on it as well, so that you get a full idea. We've been kind of focusing on the acorn swirl, and I wanted to get in a lot of different swirls recently. And the marbling is my favorite technique, so I thought I would kind of combine that ocean theme with the marbling that I love to do, and then go further from there. And then I will get back to many other things that I have that I want to do for you. Um, this technique is not hard at all, but when when you don't hit record, it doesn't record, doesn't make a video. There's a long story behind that. I'll probably not have time to get into today because of the shortened video. The fragrance oil I used was the same as last week: aloe, water, and sea kelp. Yeah, that's it. Aloe, water, and sea kelp. Um, I got that from Wholesale Supplies Plus. I'm not sure if they sell that anywhere. I haven't seen that one particularly anywhere else. It's one of my favorite ocean kind of smells because it's not too salty. Some can get a little too salty for me, and this one is not. It's a little bit more ozonic, and maybe a tad bit of tropical fruit, but it doesn't smell like somebody's suntan lotion or anything. maybe some uh, tropical florals in there as well. I don't have the description for it, but that's just what my nose tends to pick up with it. Definitely a watery smell. And so now what you're seeing me do is I'm taking those same colors and I didn't water them down, but it's kind of as a color, it's more transparent. I added clear. I took just a tiny bit out of those little cups and put them in another cup and added clear to them. So it was more transparent. I just wanted some more wisps of the color of the mica on the top of everything. And then after that set up fully, then you'll see me pouring more clear. Now, this is where the real, I'm emptying these cups, kind of ignore that. I just saw a little splash of color I wanted to add into some empty spots. And then the real um, marbling comes in. And this is just uh, it's just shea butter. It's just white soap. I don't even think I added sparkle plenty to this. It gets a little choppy on the image here, but that goes away very quickly, and you'll see what I'm doing. I'm just pouring where I poured the white. I'm trying to disturb the white a little bit without stirring it. I don't want it stirred. I just want it marbled. And this kind of moving the soap like this marbles the colors. If you're careful, if you just dump a bunch, it's not going to work. But if you're careful where you pour it and how you pour it, um, you'll get a really cool uh, effect. I think it is anyway. It's one of my favorites to do. The results are not always predictable, but you kind of learn as you go what the feel is. I'm sorry I didn't get it fully back in focus here, but that will happen in just a minute. I had to keep pouring the white because I wanted to get all this done before it even starts to set up. You really have to work quickly with this technique because you want it to flow. You want it, and you don't want it to be so hot that it flows too much because that can happen too. I can someday, well, when I do the compilation, I will point out the videos where that happened in, um, and you'll see what I mean. So a little hotter than usual. I think I probably poured the base at about 130 for doing this. So the 130, and then about the same, maybe a little bit less for the colors, whatever the colors are. And in this one, it was just like I said, just white. Um, on this portion of it. So then I poured out the rest of the clear. It was kind of gooping up on me a little, and I went ahead and poured the rest. I didn't need to do that. It didn't really add anything to it. It made it look junky, but I guarantee you, as with any of the soaps that you're using where you have little lumps and bumps and they're clear, if you pour clear over it, you're not going to see them. It disappears as it does here. This is the final topping, the final step in this one, and it's as always a clear coat for me. I like to do that especially in swirls or image, any kind of image soap, whether it's soaps with embeds. I don't do that on my loaf soaps typically because the front is you cut it differently usually for that. But I do on occasion. Of course, I had to add a little glitter, a little sparkle plenty. Um, I I don't think I added too much. Somebody else might. It does cover some of the things. I kind of figure in this type of a soap, you're looking down, and as you use the soap, it does wear away, some of the things that might cover up a shell or mask a little bit of the image that you've got. I still think it looks really cool because from the top down, you look like you're at the ocean and at the ocean side, and the white to me is the waves, but like just the foam, just the edge when you're right at the seashore, and you're maybe the just enough of the water uh, to cover your feet, maybe wading depth. I love to wade. That's one of my favorite things at the beach. Wade and look for shells. Um, uh, so this is set up now, and Goes a little in and out with the focus. Uh, I did have part of the reason I had a mess up with the recording is I do have now the monitor that I had promised so that I could see better with changing the focus a little bit when I needed to. I still think there's another problem, but that's something I'll have to address later. Um, with the focus, I think there's something going on in my camera. It keeps kind of not holding focus. So anyway, this this change of adding the monitor, it's just a TV, of adding it um to the mix, and you know, anytime you add another piece of equipment, there's a little learning curve here and there, and we had it set up so that it should be pretty easy for me to just plug in the HDMI cable and, you know, go from there. But the problem was is and I can tell this story about it because I'm just cutting, and I'll be doing a little bit of trimming with the my vegetable peeler, a little bit of beveling coming up soon. But what happened is the TV was a brand new TV, a brand new cheap, but is still a smart TV. They're annoying. You don't just turn it on and go. You turn it on and you have to create an account, and then you have to verify this email and do that, and then go on your phone and create a thing there. And it had me, I hate stuff like that in the first place, and I know I get security and all that, but this was ridiculous. It was so bad, the setup, and it frustrated me. I was already a little frustrated, um, but it got me so frustrated that by the time I was ready to record, I completely forgot to hit record, because you have to set everything else up first, of course, before you do that. So I missed it. I was just like, "Oh, let's just record." And that was me talking to myself, by the way, because there was nobody in there. um, but I was so mad. Um, and getting stuff ready like this, sometimes it hurts my back the way the setup is, um uh, as far as accessing things. And so by the time I was ready to go, I just wanted to, I don't know, spit. Anyway, that's what happened. That's why you have half a video. um Nothing in this is too far outside of what I've done before. As I said, I'm going to be doing another marble soap next, and then I'm going to publish a marbling compilation. I've done the Acorn Swirl compilation, and I've done individual marble soaps, but this will be the new one next week will be added, and this one will both be added to the marbling set collection I have, and I've never published it as a compilation. I do have it, I think I might have it as a playlist, and you are welcome to take a peek at that and see some of my other marbling styles. It's a really fun, easy technique. If Yeah, it's not, you know, so simple that anyone can do it. You have to pay attention to what you're doing. You have to pay attention to your temperatures. Um, you want to go in light-handed, not heavy-handed. Use things like those little silicone cups are really, really handy. If you don't have silicone cups, you definitely want to at least have the long spout pitchers, which you can find anywhere on, well, not anywhere, but you can find them on Amazon quite easily. And just look for a long spout pitcher. Um, I know there's other names for them, but it'll come up with that. And you make sure it's microwavable, because this technique, for me anyway, I use the microwave. If you're using something else, then you'd have to transfer it from if you're doing it in a water bath, something like that, you'd have to transfer it yourself, which is not out of the realm of possibilities. You just want to make sure no water drips into your soap base as you're transferring that. So the individual images, as you see, are coming up. Some of them are sharp, some of them are not, some of them clear up as they go. Because, like I said, I'm still having a little bit of issues. I can see what's happening, but it doesn't always mean I can catch it in time. Sometimes it just starts going out of focus a little bit without me touching anything or moving the soap. Sometimes moving the soap does it, but I'm trying to kind of catch up to what the camera's doing. It's weird. Anyway, I love the way these came out. I think they're beautiful. This one here, I think, is my favorite. Um, I have a hard time choosing a favorite sometimes, but I really loved this peachy shell, and I think it shows up quite nicely once I get it focused. It shows up really nicely against the aquas and more QS blue in this one. Each piece is a little different because I did marble the QS blue and the peacock, which is a little more on the green side, a little more of a teal, I guess. Anyway, the white to me adds a great element, which is the marbling part, the marbling effect. It really looks like the waves on the water to me. And not deep. I'm not talking about big cresting waves or anything like that. But by the time those reach the shore, that's what it looks like, at least to me. The little foamy edges of the waves at the shore. Um, so the sparkle, you can decide for yourself. There was a lot of sparkle plenty in the top. Maybe a little more than I intended, but I love glitter so much, and I should say I'm sorry, not sorry, but I'm really not. I'm not sorry. I like it. Like I said, that's all in just the very top layer. So if you're using that soap, a lot of that will just it will wash off pretty quickly within a few uses. It's not a super shallow layer, but it's also not real thick. Each layer, typically for me in a marbled soap, is going to be somewhere between 1/8 of an inch and 1/4 about. That's about what I usually do for a marble soap. Sometimes you'll get a little bit more on the pour, like as I'm moving the soap with the clear. When I'm adding the third part of it, it's always clear, color, and clear. And the second part of the clear is always gonna add a little bit more depending on how much I need to use for that soap. Occasionally, I will take a stick and drag those colors around too, but I much prefer to do it using the rest of the clear soap or other clear soap. Um, I think there's sometimes I will use a background. That's just a strict background, like this one I did the oatmeal. It's a single color. Sometimes I will swirl as the very base, the very background of it. Swirl two colors together, and sometimes it's just a solid color. I That one is typically again between 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch, and then I go from there. Typically, it's 4 layers, and I can feel that I'm speaking kind of fast through this because I feel like I'm hurrying because I missed half the video. So, which, that's legitimate to me. I want to remind you of something. If you are watching one of my videos and you don't like the speed of it, whether it's because sometimes go way too slow because I'm a slow soaper, and that happens sometimes, or I stutter sometimes if my mouth isn't working some days or my brain isn't working. I'll get a little stuttery, and so it might be too slow for you. um, you can always on YouTube, you can always watch my videos or anybody else's videos a little faster or a little slower. And they're not always like so fast that you sound like, a Muppet or something, or sound like you're on complete fast forward. It's not that fast, just a little bit faster. And you have options with how much faster too. So keep that in mind. If you need a little more time with it and you want to write stuff down, maybe play it a little slower. Um, you can always rewind and watch again. I kind of recommend, since mine are more complicated, if you really want to get all the details down, watch it once, paying close attention to the visual, what I'm doing, what text comes up, etc. And then maybe another time and just listen to me. Listen more to what the words are telling you, um, whatever my words may be, stumbling or not. But if you got this far, I'm hoping that you liked it, because if not, it was a waste of your time. But I love the soap and I love all you guys. And I thank you so much for joining me. And I thank you for your support for my channel. I would not be here without you. You are amazing soapers and friends, and if I don't know you yet, I hope to get to. Thanks so much. Bye. Hey everyone, I'm making one more marbled soap, melt and pour, today before I get busy onto some other techniques. And I just wanted to share some things with you that I thought may help you out. This is a little bit of troubleshooting. And as you see at the top of the page, top of the screen is going to be what I'm using. And of course, what I'm using is really important to the technique. And that is I'm using Crafter's Choice Premium Crystal Clear Melt and Pour Soap Base. Now, you can use what you want. You need to find the clearest available, and then the I guess the second most important thing is you have to know what your melting point is for your soap. It's going to be different for every brand, and you have to know that. If they don't provide that information, which they should, but if they don't, whatever company you purchase from, email them, call them, um, etc. Whatever way you can get a hold of them, go on their website. Um, if the info isn't on your package, which it should be, but sometimes it's not. So um, check out your company and really bug them until you get that information. You really have to have it to properly use your melt and pour soap. Now, on top of that, I think I said it a second ago, but I've restarted this about 6 times, so I'm not sure. If I repeat myself, please forgive me. Um, you want to get the clearest one available to you. Now, mine and notice the sparkles flying around. I was wearing a mask for about 10 seconds because that's about as long as I can tolerate a mask. But you want to know that when you're using really, really lightweight mica and glitter, you want to do that because otherwise you're going to be breathing that in. And I didn't breathe it in, but I was sparkly everywhere. It was really special. So, what I'm doing today with this is I want to troubleshoot this technique a little bit. I noticed a few of you have had issues with it, and I'm guessing because I don't really know what your issues were. I'm guessing that I can address some of them at least in this video. So the basic is you're going to melt about 8 to 10 ounces if you have this. This is using a 10 by 11 slab mold. That is the perfect size, in my opinion, for doing this technique. It is really hard the smaller you get. And I put 8 to 10 ounces, but really the main thing is to cover the bottom of your mold. If I did it, so it's about I did it about an eighth of an inch to a quarter of an inch thick on the bottom. So these little white ones are great because you can kind of see through them. So if you were to peek around the side of the mold, you could see how high up the soap goes because they're just a little bit translucent. So that's how I measure it. It tends to be about eight ounces typically for that. Depends on what you're doing with it and if you're doing multiple colors. You don't have to do multiple colors. I didn't in this. I just wanted it ridiculously sparkly, and I got that. And then the next most important thing to note is these next steps. These steps are super important. You have to pour clear. I think you already, I don't know if I already poured the clear. No, I didn't. I'm just stirring in the colors here. So I've got on layer 1, round 1 of this, I've got the Harold's Purple Crayon and Heliotrope, both from my micas. Um, I've just put a very little bit, probably like an eighth of a teaspoon or so into those cups, and a very tiny bit of mica. You don't want to overdo the mica, and you don't want to do the soap base too hot at this point. It's a balance because it has to be hot enough and it can't be too hot. So if it's hot enough, then it will properly stick to that layer underneath and also help the soap to spread properly. If it's too hot, the soap will spread too fast, which you'll see in my third layer that I do, because it didn't ruin it, but it didn't do what I wanted to because it was a little too hot. But anyway, I'm adding my fragrance oil. If you really want your soap to be and stay clear, first of all, be aware of your fragrance oil that there's no vanillin in it, and that it's stirred in quite well to your melt and pour soap. I do cut out quite a bit of me stirring because it's boring to watch somebody just stir soap, especially if there's no sparkly colors in it or anything. And this soap needs this one bucket really nice and full, and I really use more like 1.5 of these, but they need to that needs to stay um, nice and clear for this type of soap. So I'm getting ready to pour on a clear layer on this. I do spritz it with alcohol first. That does help it adhere. It also helps bubbles from forming, and then you spritz it again with alcohol once you've poured it. And I poured into these little cups real quickly. These are 3.4 ounces or 100-gram cups. I don't even fill them halfway. I come close to halfway, and that's still way too much. I always have leftovers, and I always use them. I promise they don't go to waste. And you will see that if you don't want to waste any, maybe try for a quarter of the cup. I never know. So, I pinch the cup. That's why I use those little silicone cups. You can pinch the end. I forget on one of these and don't pinch the end, but it's okay. But it helps to pinch the end to get a nice clean line. Um, it's random. It's a random line, and then you chase it with that clear soap. This is how you create the look of marbling. I am using a stick here because I poured way too much clear in that one spot, and it chased things a little too far away. But if you are mostly just following the soap you poured in, it's going to move the direction you're moving. If you're pouring to the right, it's going to move the soap to the right. If you're pouring to the left, like running a line, like here I'm going to the left, and it moves that soap out and to the left. And if you want to go straight down, you kind of need to go in a little circle, which is what I just did with the last two. And I'm hoping you can see that in this one right here. And if you see an empty spot, just go back and put a little dab. Um, I'm moving quite fast in this. You have to move a lot faster if you're using another brand, or just be prepared and aware that you might need to heat things up, that you might want to do one color at a time if your soap seizes up too quickly, because that can be a problem with soaps that have a really high melting point. They're not going to stay open very long. That's why I like this soap. Um, it stays liquid for longer. Um, but you can get away with this if you just do one color at a time. Pour one little, pour the stripes or whatever designs you want with one color, and pour the clear on it and enough to move it around, and then let it go and just let it set up, and then pour another layer of clear. That is the utmost important in this technique. There has to be a layer of clear first. I'm not talking about the background, but if you're going to marble, if you're going to pour anything to marble, clear goes first, because that is what gets the effect. Now, can you do it with other colors? Sure. I'm going to play around with a white one later, like white and marbling it into the white. But that's not going to be for quite a while. Um, this next one here I added it, you may notice I added some more clear soap because I didn't want to run out, and I'd rather just heat it all at once. I was going to have to go back and heat it anyway, but it in total for this mold, this size mold, 10 by 11, it it's about 4 pounds of soap. It's a lot of soap, and you get 12 bars out of that if you follow their lines. You can probably get a different amount of bars if you words, Terry. if um if you cut it differently, and if you are trying to do a thicker soap, really this is the kind of soap that you want the top to be the top. Like, not in a loaf soap where the top is kind of the front, the side. Um Okay, here these see how much they spread? They spread a little too fast because it was all a little too hot. The clear, I heated it up that second time, and it just a few degrees too hot. Um, so just be aware of uh, for melt and pour. That's the crafter's choice. I like to pour it around 130 to 135 for this technique. Um, you you might be able to get away with a little higher, but don't go over 140. You will be sorry. Um, or maybe not. I mean, sometimes you can still get a good soap out of it, but you're pushing your luck. Go back and watch my Ebenezer Scrooge series that I did. If you want to see a real mess up on the swirl, this type on the marbling and what happens when you pour a thin line and the soap is too hot. It just spreads over the whole top of it and you won't see anything underneath. Speaking of seeing underneath, you notice the little holes I was kind of pouring, just pouring little spots, and it opens it up if the color is kind of covering too much. I do that again. Where you pour the soap, it's going to chase the mica away a little bit. And so that's the basic technique of marbling. You're moving it and you're chasing it around until you get a look that you like. I'm turning it one more time because I'm just adding a layer of clear over the top. I like to do a clear coat in especially these kinds of designs, but really all of my soaps because it just gives it a nicer finish. And be assured that before I poured that, it was all set up. I take out a lot of the boring parts like soap drying or melt or not. Yeah, soap melting, soap setting up, all that. You don't want to watch that. Stirring in fragrance oil, that's boring. And I really sped up the cutting because I think that's boring too. What I'm doing here, I will tell you, I've in this particular mold, it has little marks, which is great. It's a really, and it gives you, like I said, 12 really decent slices. They'll weigh different amounts, so don't ask me what they weigh. They'll weigh different amounts depending on how high you pour it. If you pour it about halfway up, you have an inch. I usually go a little bit over that, and they're usually going to be at that point somewhere between 5 and 6 ounces. I've certainly gone thicker on these, but it depends on the technique and depends on what I'm doing and how much I'm paying attention. I will strongly suggest, um, making sure your what is it? Your slab mold is level. Your work surface is level. I'm struggling with that, and I keep saying I have a fix for it, and I keep not doing it because I have to go get an item, and I keep forgetting to do that. So eventually, I will work that out for you. Until now, I just keep turning it every layer, or so every other layer maybe. Just turning it a little so that the tilt goes somewhere else and it levels it out a little bit. Um, so this is the unveiling. It's not anything incredible other than that sparkle. Oh my goodness. I don't know if you can tell from this because again, I see this on a small screen, but wow, that sparkle is amazing. I think when I bring these up closer a little bit later, I think you can really get an idea of how sparkly that Sparkle Plenty is. It's the entire back. I did not put like white mica. I didn't put titanium dioxide or anything else white in that. It is all just catching that sparkle, and it's almost illuminated. When like I said, I think in a few of the ones that I bring up, you can tell that, but it looks like it's lit up from behind, or I don't know. It's really cool. Now I have not tried lighting these up from behind because I still think that part of it is a little bit um well, not completely see through, but transparent, translucent. Sorry, translucent. Transparent means perfectly clear. Translucent is clear-ish, sorta. You can see light through it, and opaque is you can't see a thing through it. No light was going to come through. So I think these are a bit translucent from the back. So I don't think that white completely covered it, but it covered it enough to keep the light out that I wanted for the look I wanted. And then, like I said, I'll try later to put a flashlight behind it because that's always fun to see what they look like. Some soaps look super cool like that. And if, people who use glycerin soaps regularly or if they're new to it and they've never seen it, a lot of times they want to see what it looks like because it is kind of transparent. So they hold it up to the light or to the shower light or whatever while they're using it because it just looks cool. And so, um, sometimes I take pictures like that. Sometimes I don't remember to do so. So here, I'm obviously the lighting changed a little. It really isn't the lighting that's changed. It's just I brought it up closer to where the lights are. But can you see that white? How it's just kind of glowing. It just picks up the reflection of that glitter of the light on the glitter, and it looks so beautiful. Some, like I say, I think toward the end, some of them are a little clearer than others. They're all clear as far as the soap goes, but as far as seeing to the back, some of them you can see right to the back. Now, I didn't mention it when I was pouring it because I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth at the same time, just trying to say too many things at once, basically. Um, but the third layer I did, because the first layer is just Sparkle Plenty. Second layer was um, Harold Harold's Purple Crayon and Heliotrope. And the third layer was Nebula, which is where you might get a flash of blue going in there. Really cool. Really cool. It's one of my favorite colors. Um, and with Nebula was Flash Dance, which is these are, you notice they're kind of pairs of similar colors. Well, Flash Dance is kind of similar to Heliotrope, um, but a little more pink, a little more on the pink side. But what I did to it, because I don't know, just wanted to play. I was playing. Um, is I added a little bit more of the Sparkle Plenty to that. So that's the only color within this that had sparkles. The back, of course, did. But I wanted to put a little up front too and see what it would do. And it was really cool. It's really very sparkly soap. Again, this is environmentally friendly soap, or not soap. Yes, it is environmentally friendly soap, but it is environmentally friendly glitter. It is also soap safe, and it is also there is no aluminum and there is no plastic. This is very good quality cosmetic glitter. So that's the kind you want to use in soap. It really is. You don't want to be clogging up the sinks and the waterways and causing all kinds of problems, or having it disintegrate in your soap. I love this one. I think it looks like clouds. There's so many different looks in these. I know I always make you tell me, or not make you, ask you to tell me what they look like. I feel like this one looks like a cotton candy cloud, but there are some of them that to me looked like watercolor paintings. There are some of them that looked like just swirled soap. It just reminded me of just a soap swirl. Maybe that's because that's what I look at all day, but um, some really cool looks. Some of them look kind of like glass, as you see the dimensionality kind of looking down through those layers. And that's almost always my goal. Is I want something to look, if I'm doing clear, especially something with clears, I want to be able to see all the way to the back, at least in places, and have see the real dimension to what the soap is. Maybe it's like another world. You're looking down into another dimension or something. That's just me because I like glass art a lot. Um, I know I've mentioned that to many of you. So if you've been around for a while, you've certainly heard that before. And if you haven't, that's one of the reasons I love Melt and Pour soap, the clear Melt and Pour soap. I like other Melt and Pour soap as well because you can do all kinds of really cool creative things in different skin feels and all that. But this is my diehard favorite. Um, it is I am now an affiliate with Wholesale Supplies Plus, but I am not encouraging you to buy this product because of that. I am encouraging you to buy this product because I love it, and you've heard me say it for now 3 years. Um, if you've watched my channel from the beginning. And if you haven't, hey, go back to the beginning because there's some great beginner videos in there. I have a whole series and I'm trying to beef that up. I'm going to be adding some um, more beginner type soaps and videos to try to catch up anybody that hasn't seen mine, and maybe add a few more that I might have neglected to add in the first place, or just a better way of teaching you or better way of describing it. I know everyone learns differently, and I try to accommodate for that. That being said, if you have other questions about this soap, uh, other than knowing your temperature and not letting it set up in between the layers, you got clear colors, clear, set up, clear colors, clear, set up. If other than that, if you don't know what to do, if you don't know what went wrong, please reach out and let me know what went wrong or send me a picture. That helps me to help you. And that is the whole goal of this channel. I love to make soap art, and that is my passion. But more than that, I am a teacher from day one, and I love to help others learn to be creative and to learn to make soap art because it's fun. Thank you so much. Bye.